Hey, Steel Watchers, it is mine and especially Eric's favorite time once more.
No! No!
Shush.
No!
Shush.
No!
It is, as you can tell from the screams of torture, it is time for us to start thinking about our top 5 episode for season 3. So, as
Our
always,
top 5 episodes episode.
Yes, exactly. That's how it sounds. That's what I meant. So as always, we welcome and encourage everybody else's contributions as well, because otherwise it's just the two of us talking. And I mean, like, we do that enough. So if anyone wants to submit their top 5 episodes of season 3, please do so. You can send them to the email. That's probably the most preferable spot to send them, so we can just compile them and make a list. And yeah, we will read them. Let us know whether or not you want us to say your name when we read it or not. And
what name you want us to use. If you want to be introduced as Lord Darth Vader. Okay.
I had a student who wanted to be called Batman once, so I did. So yeah, please send us your top 5s so that we can stretch out the episode and pad it. No, I'm serious. Like, we can include it with quality content.
Yes.
That's pretty much all I had to say.
As opposed to what we normally do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And I am Eric, and I'm starting to feel like a medical crash test dummy.
Let's see what happens when he doesn't have the seatbelt on. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's going to be the top 5 episode too. So
yeah. And just remember, folks, get those top 5s into our email. Yay! I just thought I'd put that in there.
Yeah.
So we are going to be talking about season 3, episode 16. Have I got it? No, that's not right. That's not right at all. I am looking at the wrong.
Did you prepare the wrong episode?
No. I have it. Why is it not? Oh, you know what? I just didn't change the title. It says "Steele in the Family," and then I wrote "Have I Got a Steele for You?" So that was a mistake.
Okay.
So let's try this again.
We're professionals, people.
Season 3, episode 16, Steele in the Family. And I'm hoping I got the date and the writers right, because if I screwed up the title, I might have just screwed all of it up. So let's see. Tell me if I'm right, Eric.
Okay, I've got it written down here. So I just, on an impulse, I added it to my notes. I don't know why. I just...
You knew, subconsciously you knew I was going to screw something up.
That's
all right.
It's because I'm psychotic.
Yeah. And on drugs. This episode first aired on February 5th. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yay!
1985. Yay.
Okay. And it was written by Brad Kern and directed by Larry Ellicott. Am I correct? Ellicott? I don't know.
I don't know about the pronunciation, but yes, you got all the basic information.
Yay,
Absolutely
everything
correct.
but the title, which is not important at all. So
No, not at all.
Whoops. Oh. Okay, people, when I said, "Have I got a Steele for You?" they were probably like, "Wait, what? Am I listening to the right?" Yeah, that was me. Yeah, so I went with I have actually written down both the TV guide synopsis and the DVD liner notes, and I can't actually remember why I wrote them both down, so I'm going to read them both, and hopefully that will
you're too young to be having memory issues.
No. Hopefully that'll jog something in this brain of mine. The TV guide synopsis says, Mildred's enterprising straight arrow... Oh, I know why I did it. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Mildred's enterprising straight arrow nephew has a little problem. He needs to hide a body from a hitman who needs the corpse to confirm the kill for his employers. Okay. And then I'll read the DVD liner note and I'll tell you why I put them both here. DVD liner note says, Mildred's straight-laced nephew helps a prostitute hide a murdered client in Remington's bathtub. Now, the DVD liner note is more straight up and honest. Like, this is what the episode's about. So if I were to try to describe the plot, that's what I would use. I added in the TV guide synopsis because I thought it was hilarious that they basically used as many words as they could to avoid using the word prostitute in the episode synopsis.
Well,
it does not mention anything about her. It says, Mildred's enterprising straight arrow nephew has a little problem. He needs to hide a body from a hitman who needs the corpse to confirm the kill for his employers. technically that is the plot.
Yeah, I was going to say, technically it's not wrong.
But it's kind of eliminating the most kind of important part of that plot is that he only has to do that because of Clarissa, who is let's say it now, a prostitute. So,
yeah, well.
So
well,
my guess...
if Clarissa was something else, like a realtor, and she was showing the guy the house and she'd stepped out and he got shot.
Yeah.
It could still work, but it works better this way. So
it just feels like they went out of their way to describe it without using any mention of her.
Mm-hmm.
So I just found it funny how the DVD liner note was like, she's a prostitute. Although I'm going to take issue with some of the elements of that when we get into it, but
oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, not the fact that we'll get there. Yeah. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we get this opening scene and and again, this is, it's the 80s, folks.
Yes.
We're going to go out of our way to show this scene and have nothing even remotely scandalous about it, despite the fact that she's hired for a specific thing. And anyway, so.
Well, but there's a lot of innuendo there. I mean.
Yeah. We open inside an apartment, very nice apartment. There's kind of like, I wrote sportsy type music, but I wasn't sure how else to describe it. It's like trumpets and
raw music.
Yeah. Sportsy type. I don't know.
Yeah. Did
my best. Okay. And we see this. Oh, and Nancy Everhard, who plays, that was in my notes. She plays Clarissa. This is the first of 2 of her appearances. And I think fans will probably forgive her a little bit more for this episode than they will for the second episode she appears in, because that would be Bonds of Steel. So, yeah. Although it's not her fault, but Remington's a moron. All right. So, yeah, we get this beautiful woman dressed in a cheerleading outfit, jumping up and down, pom-poms, spelling out the name Harold, which, I mean, she can spell. That's good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that he had a name that was easy, and not something really difficult.
You mean like one of those names where you look at it and it looks like their parents just took out a bunch of pieces from a Scrabble kit, threw them on the table and said, we're going to make a name out of that?
Don't get me started. Like, as a teacher, you have no idea the names I've seen at this point. And I'm not talking about like culturally different names, right? Which can be difficult to pronounce, but at least they're relevant to the culture. I'm talking about like the weirdest flipping names. These parents name their kids, right? So
John, spelled with 77 letters that kind of sound like John when you put them all together, but it's like you said, going the long way around to not do it. Yeah,
well, and the hardest, I don't know if you've ever seen Irish names, but they're really difficult to spell because Gaelic spellings don't have anything that you would pronounce in the spelling. Like Siobhan, okay, for example, is spelled Siobhan. That's Siobhan. Don't ask me why.
With a V sound or a B sound?
With a V sound. But it's spelled with a V.
No, that's just plain wrong.
Right? And then I apologize to anybody Irish who's listening, but like this is true. Like my husband's best friends, they've got a child named Kiva, which I would assume would be Keeva, correct? Mm-hmm. No, it is spelled Caiomhe. So the only letter in that you pronounce is the C. Anyway,
and
so
just in fairness to our Irish friends,
it's Gaelic. It's
I love the Irish stuff. I have Irish hats that I bought from an Irish manufacturer and had mailed over. So, yes, I've got no.
No, I actually love Gaelic and the Gaelic language. I just find it so amusing that you'll have this name and then you're like, I don't know what to pronounce here because I don't understand the grammar of it. There's a specific grammatical, like there's rules to it that I just don't understand. So, but trying to spell a name, right, is going to be really difficult because you're not sure what letters are actually pronounced and what aren't, unless you're Irish and you understand how it works. So
anyway,
she doesn't have to spell that. Anyway, she's spelling Harold. It's easy. So then we see at the top of the stairs an older gentleman who comes running out dressed in a football uniform, and he's holding, and football, I mean, actually American
football.
Hand egg. Not
hand egg.
Actual football. Yeah, hand, and it's an egg shape, hand egg.
New name for the American football. It's hand egg.
That's what my husband calls it. She cheers him on as he runs down the stairs, right? She calls him the pride of Benjamin High. So, I mean, I think we can both assume that this is him living out his glory days.
Yeah, and I had thoughts about that. I mean, how to say this without coming off as being heartless. It's kind of pathetic. I mean, his life must be so miserable that he's trying to relive his glory days. Granted, I understand it's role play for this, but it does seem like he's trying to, life was so great when I was a high school or college football champion and star, and I miss those days, and I've just got to relive them over again. It's really,
it's even sadder if you consider the fact that this guy's a millionaire.
Well,
right. He's rich, and not only is he like, you would think somebody that has millions of dollars, and granted he's selling his company or they're taking it over, but it's obvious, as you like, I don't think he has anybody in his life if he's hiring somebody to do this role play with him, right? That it's
pathetic.
Yeah. That is
Go ahead and say it. Say the word. I already did.
It kind of makes me think of Al Bundy, reliving his glory days at Polk High, But yeah, so she calls him the pride of Benjamin High. He runs around the living room and he's faking his moves as if he's on the football field while she calls the game until he scores a touchdown and she declares that he wins. Maybe this isn't him trying to relive the glory days. Maybe this is just, what gets him going,
Well, yeah, I thought about that, but I just had to keep coming back to the fact that no, there's kind of that element of reliving the glory days and yeah. Anyway,
so she jumps up and down, and then the doorbell rings. Now he asks if those are the reporters.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I think you may be getting to where the same place I was, but anyway.
I don't know, but we'll see.
We'll see.
He asks if those are the reporters. She tells him it's Mary Jo from Channel 6, and she's come to evaluate his performance.
Okay, that's not the question I had. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
We'll finish yours first, and then we'll do one.
I think we can infer, before he's killed, of course, we can infer that if he's expecting reporters, that it has to do with his company, correct?
No. I think okay, so now it's leading into mine, because Clarissa was not surprised by the doorbell ringing.
No.
And she says, it's Mary Jo from Channel 6. This is one of Mary Jo's co-workers who's going to join in the festivities.
Oh, supposedly. See, I didn't assume that at all. I thought, because she knows about the takeover, that's how Bernard is able to pass that information along, and he seems to be expecting reporters. So.
But that would be out of context. I mean, if he's going to be playing games with you're not going to want reporters showing up in the middle of that about your company being sold. No, I am pretty positive that this is one of Clarissa's coworkers who was supposed to join them for the activities, because.
So this actually leads into one of the things that I was going to talk about, because there's two theories I have for Clarissa, right? There is a difference between a prostitute and a call girl, right? Prostitute, you think person on the corner, they're wearing next to nothing. They're usually pretty haggard looking. They don't look like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman.
No.
Call girls, on the other hand, are more high class, more upscale. They usually cater to richer clients. And not all of their dates are based around sex. Like, a lot of the time, they'll be hired to hang on the arm of a rich client for a function or something, or they might be hired to do something like sit with them and play board games or cuddle because they, a lot of these.
I think that's more along the lines of a professional escort and less of a call girl.
Okay, so I was thinking the same thing, that I use those words interchangeably, but I'm not a...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I consider them different things.
Okay, so, then I'm talking escort, basically then, right? Either way, somebody who isn't always there for sex, although it's obvious that there is a relationship between her and Harold. She calls him swivel hips. There's obviously, they've obviously...
And her the way she calls his...
Yeah, exactly.
Things like season openings, penetrates the hole, he scores. Can you put it between the uprights? I'm sorry. No, that's...
Wow. I didn't notice that at all, frankly, but where was my brain?
But
yeah, I missed that one.
No, I understand what you're saying, but
yeah,
the fact that Mary Jo is supposedly going to show up there to evaluate his performance, I'm sorry, but then the other question is, why does Mary Jo never show up?
Well, this is okay. So this was my theory, because I actually assumed there were legitimately reporters coming, and that it wasn't. Because...
Wait a second. So she arranges, or he arranges, for reporters to come report on the sale of his business while he's wearing a football uniform, and she's dressed as a cheerleader?
I mean, seriously? She went upstairs to change, though, so I'm assuming that he didn't think they would be there that early.
I think you really read this episode wrong.
I assumed that she was an escort, that what they were doing may or may not lead to something physical, but that she was there kind of pumping him up for his interview. Because a lot of the time, escorts are hired to do other things. I understand
what you're saying.
Right?
I understand what you're saying. I think you're wrong.
Because, like you said, Mary Jo never shows. And if she did, she would have seen a dead body. Like the escort never shows. Mm-hmm. And they were waiting on reporters. Like, I don't know. That was my assumption. Either way, the other option, if she's not an escort, if she's just a straight up prostitute, then this is the lamest and tamest prostitute fantasy ever. Because, like, this was either...
How would you know?
Well, I'm just... Like, come on. This is... Either she's an escort who has other functions besides just the, sex part of things, or the network was like, well, we can't show them actually doing anything really dirty, and she has to look, because, like, if you look at her throughout the entire episode, she's always dressed extremely classy. Like, at no point does she ever look trashy. And I'm not saying that, every sex worker is trashy, but I'm saying that normally if somebody's standing on the street, they're going to be dressed in next to nothing because they're showing people what they're getting,
is
right?
available. Yeah, well,
yeah, exactly.
I figure Clarissa is like a $500 or $1,000 an hour visitor. Yeah. And for $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour, you want to play the football fantasy? We'll do the football fantasy.
I don't know. Because she says, he asks if those are the reporters. She says it's Mary Jo from Channel 6. You could be right about Mary Jo, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know that this was necessarily all about that. I think that she's there to kind of, like, cheer him on and be a companion for him, as well as whatever else they do, right?
Well, there may be that too, but yeah. I think the other thing is definitely implied. Clearly implied.
Either way, she says he's ready. She tells him that she can feel it, offering to go start the shower. Then she calls him swivel hips, right? She runs back up the stairs, continuing to cheer for him. He opens the door. A man stands at the other side, pulls out a gun, shoots him twice, puts the gun away, and leaves. When she comes back to ask if Mary Jo got anything out of him, I mean, that would have been really quick.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Maybe he's
right?
just, never mind.
Yeah. She sees the body and looks down in shock. So that's our opening scene, right?
Yeah. And just for anybody that has missed our previous discussions, no, that's not how silencers in sarcasm quotes work. Just a quick refresher. Most civilian accessible firearms emit sounds ranging from 140 to 175 decibels. That's in the extreme hazardous range. And the suppressors, which is the technically correct term for them, only reduce that sound level to about 120 to 150 decibels, which is still in the extreme hazardous range. So no, she would have heard it before she saw it. So anyway, there you go.
For those of us who are Canadian, we just smile and nod. Yeah, that's totally how it works. I believe it.
Oh, hey, here's another question. Well, it kind of in this scene and the next scene as well.
Right.
With Bernard. Where's the blood?
Oh, you jumped ahead. But yes.
But I mean, we see him on the floor with bullet holes in his football uniform, but we don't see any blood. I mean, no. Come on.
And seriously? You can't tell me, like, I know there'd be padding, but it wouldn't be able to absorb.
Not that much.
Much. No.
If it was, the diaper companies would just be making a fortune out of it.
Oh my God, yeah. I never thought of that. But I guess it would be too difficult to show her trying to clean it up out of her carpet because it's her apartment, right?
Yes,
so, yeah. I guess that fits more with your theory then, because why would reporters be coming to her apartment? Anyway.
Score one for me! I win one!
For now.
For now. Great, yeah.
So we switch to a building in the city, and we see the hitman making his way over to a payphone. He calls a number, and a middle-aged man in an office on it answers, and then the hitman says it's done and hangs up. Puts the phone down, picks it back up, pulling out a piece of paper with a police number on it, and he tells the police that a man has been shot, gives the address. When they ask who he is, he tells them, I'm a concerned citizen, and then hangs up.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Just as a side note, the actor who plays this character here,
right?
He was Lieutenant Carpenter on McHale's Navy, and I love this guy. He is absolutely hilarious.
I knew I recognized him from something.
Yeah, he's just absolutely a suck up and bumbler. I love this actor because he does this kind of a character so well.
Yeah, I mean, he's good with this because he hangs up when he says, there's a man that's been shot, and he hangs up. He looks distraught and upset, even though this is what they've hired this guy to do, right? Yeah. So, yeah, you can clearly see that he's not used to dealing with a hitman.
Yeah. I mean, most people probably aren't, but
that's true. I can't say I've ever looked them up in the phone book.
What would you look under?
I don't know. Wetworks?
I don't know.
Back in the apartment, we've got Clarissa and a young man that we later learn is Mildred's nephew, Bernard, and they're staring at the body. Bernard is in shock, keeps saying he's dead, to which she replies, well, nothing gets past you. She asks him to help her move the body, and when he asks where, she has no idea, but out of her living room. That's fair. I don't think I would want that in my living room as a conversation piece either. Personally, nope. I'd want him elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, in the distance, we hear police sirens. She's upset about it. This is a nice apartment. So again, this is kind of like going towards that. She's a high-end escort because she clearly, as you said, makes a lot of money.
She ain't cheap. That's for sure.
Yeah. So they look out the window.
In any sense of the word.
No, and I think the episode treats her with respect, which I do like.
I was I didn't put that in my notes, but I was thinking about that and wanted to kind of mention that if it came up. So it's come up and I will. Yeah, this is back in the 1980s, and I would say that when these type of characters were brought up in TV shows, they weren't necessarily, they weren't treated as, they were almost treated as being more equated with the streetwalker. So they were always kind of treated dismissively. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting fact that the Remington Steele show during this time had this person that they really didn't make any negative commentary on in any way in the episode.
Like Laura, she suspects, you can tell she suspects something. And then when she puts the pieces together, she's wondering what Steele's doing with her. But beyond that, there doesn't seem to be any judgment about her profession. It's just
there's maybe a little bit of surprise from Laura that, well, like you said, that any of them have come into contact with this person. But and also the fact that she didn't apparently associate somebody of Clarissa's, I'll say, elegance with that profession. So maybe that's a little bit of a commentary on Laura's attitude, but
true. Yeah, it could be. They look out the window and see a bunch of emergency services outside. And so Bernard is now fully freaking out. He sits down. He says they're dead. He's not going to graduate. They're doomed. I know that Bernard is tied into the whole situation, but honestly, he's no help, right?
No, he's not.
Like, she called him for help, and he's just panicking. He's making things worse. He's not contributing to their situation in the slightest. So,
well, I guess this kind of hints that Clarissa has more experience in dealing with situations that require clear, decisive thinking than Bernard does. So.
Yeah. She, on the other hand, says her neighbors are away. They can put the body in their condo. Don't think the neighbors would be super, super keen on that, but,
Yeah, I mean, but as long as they don't know, I guess, what's the big deal, right?
He just keeps repeating, "We're dead." To which she says, "Well, we will be if we can't move the body," and she asks him to help her. So he crouches down to grab a leg. Then he tells her he's not real good with death. Cool. Just the right guy you want to have there. Right.
That's right.
Police, meanwhile, have the address. They're in the building. They're doing a door to door. They knock on the door to the apartment. They open it, and it's empty. So obviously, in between there, they got the body out and moved it. And this is where I have my comment on the lack of blood. Right. In fact, my comment I wrote, "I call bull caca. There would be some blood from that wound."
Oh yeah.
So the blood isn't real if it's inconvenient to the plot.
That's right.
Not quite the slogan that
it just doesn't have the same ring to it. Yeah.
I mean, it's they could have easily incorporated it without actually having to do anything extra, right? Say he's laying there and he bleeds, and they're moving the body. She throws a throw rug over top of it.
Yeah.
Right? Or the police open the door and there's a rug there where the body was.
Yeah, I don't know. I know blood has an odor. I don't know if it would be strong enough that it would be immediately apparent or not at this point. It may be a while before it becomes noticeable. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there was always ways that they could deal with it. I mean, we stretch reality in every other way. Why not here?
That's true. So they enter and they do they do the most unthorough sweep of an apartment that I have ever seen before declaring it a false alarm.
Well, they're Hollywood police. I mean,
they walk in, they just sort of look around. They don't even really go. One of them goes into, I think, the bedroom, and that's about it. And then they're like, "Well, guess there's nothing here. We were told there was a dead guy, but hey, guess we got the wrong place." Womp womp. And they leave.
Hollywood police. That reminds me, Jack Benny on one of his TV specials did a bit about the Hollywood Police Department, and something had happened. His Maxwell got stolen or something, and he was trying to get a hold of him, but they had an unlisted number, and you had to go in and they had a greeter, and do you have an appointment? I mean, it's
Wow.
just ridiculous.
You know what? It makes me think of, have you ever seen the movie Last Action Hero?
No.
It kind of makes fun of all of these action movie tropes and things that we see in action movies. And ironically, it was one of the worst movie flops in cinema history. Not because it's a bad film. It's actually a really good film. But they were idiotic enough to insist that it opened the same week Jurassic Park did, or a week before, a week after. And anyway, Jurassic Park just trampled it at the box office. But there's a scene where they go into the Hollywood police station, and it's this absolutely gorgeous glass building. There's beautiful desks everywhere. There's women in scantily clad clothing walking around just for no reason at all. And it's making fun of that particular trope that you mentioned, that this is what supposedly Hollywood police precincts look like, right? And there's even a scene where you would like this, where one of the characters in the film gets out of the film and into the real world, because that's the plot of the movie. Is this kid ends up inside of an action movie with his favorite action hero played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then they get out. The villain gets out into the real world and discovers that he can shoot somebody in the middle of New York, in the streets in New York, and nobody will bat an eye. And so he does, and he stands there going, "Hey, I just shot somebody, and I did it on purpose." And nobody looks, right? And he's like, "This is great. In this world, the villains can win." And yeah, anyway, so watch it. You'll get a kick out of it. But yeah, so then we switch to Laura's office. We see her. She's going through the filing cabinet. Steele comes in and declares that it boggles the mind to see her doing so much paperwork when they don't have any cases. She replies the work isn't done till the paperwork is. Not to be deterred, he mentions a quaint little island offshore where they have never heard of paperwork, Catalina. He also tells her that he has a friend who has a whirlybird and has offered his services. This is part of that trend I mentioned before we were talking about when we were talking about springtime, where once the freeze becomes a thaw, he spends almost every episode trying to get her to go somewhere. Rather than just hey, let's go out for dinner nearby, or let's have a night in at the apartment and watch a movie, he's trying so hard to facilitate this back to normal romantic whatever, that he's constantly trying to get her to go to all these places, right?
Well, he's trying to make it so big and over the top that she'll be impressed.
Yeah. And I mean, in this case, it kind of works. She looks excited. She throws the paperwork into the cabinet, and she's like, "Well, guess that wraps things up." So,
well, is she all that excited to go to Catalina, or just to get out of doing the paperwork?
Well, I don't know if it's Catalina per se, but I think she's wanting to go with him. I do think she wants to be, they had a thaw, right? They are in that right zone. It's just he's kind of he's overdoing it, right? He's just, yeah. And maybe, I don't know, she seems to like island destinations, so that could be
Island Girl.
So, and Steele looks surprised it actually worked, right? He's got a look on his face holy crap, she went for it. So we've got Mildred, however, in the office. She's working on the computer, and Bernard comes in. He addresses her as Aunt Mildred when she turns around. So she jumps up, hugs him, and asks what he's doing there. He tells her he has business in L.A. And that's where if you didn't know who Bernard was, make the connection, right?
Yes.
Steele and Laura leave the office. Mildred introduces Bernard. Laura says they've heard nothing but good things. Mildred brags that he has straight A's at UC Santa Barbara. And Steele remarks that he's quite an entrepreneur. And Bernard sort of gives a modest wave, but Mildred adds that he could buy and sell Wall Street if he wasn't such an honest kid. So it's it's obvious that, even though we haven't heard anything about him thus far, we know she's got a sister, so this is the closest thing Mildred ever got to being a parent. And
can I jump back just a little bit?
Yeah.
About the helicopter bit?
Sure.
I know that Steele knows how to fly a helicopter, but my question that I had here, and I just forgot to look at my notes while we were talking. Does he have an actual pilot's license to fly one? That's a different thing than knowing how to do it. Knowing how to do it doesn't mean you can legally fly it. You have to have a license. And given that he's in this country under an assumed name,
yeah,
and it probably didn't come in on a passport that he could use to get a pilot's license. And I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't pass the background check under the name Remington Steele because he doesn't have a history.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that if he does have a pilot's license, it's under a fake name and it was obtained through less than legal means. Or it's forged.
Because he would have to have something, because the person who loans him the helicopter becomes liable if anything happens. And actually, it's probably a what do they call it? A technical violation to let somebody who isn't licensed fly it anyway, which could cost the other person their license.
Yeah.
But
maybe
anyway,
maybe the person who's loaning it to them is a colleague of Steele's.
Yeah. So, anyway, back to Bernard and taming Wall Street.
Yeah. Well,
so honest.
The more praise Mildred heaps on him, especially for his honesty, the more Bernard looks deeply uncomfortable.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And Steele tells him that he's always had a soft spot for profit makers or finder's fees, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Laura adds that Mildred just brought them another one of his surefire deals. Bernard awkwardly tells them that even surefire deals can end up dead on their feet. Mildred, this is why I don't invest. This is why I'm not interested in any of that, because I don't like the idea of losing money. I'm funny that way. So I'm just like,
I don't think most people just go around saying, I want to lose money today.
Yeah, well, but I mean, there's people that are willing to invest and take those risks. They're probably more okay with the concept that they might lose it. Because you have to be, right? You have to be to.
They're gambling. It's a kind of a form of gambling, I guess.
Yeah.
You could say, because there is risk involved. You don't know that it's going to pay off in the end. But then again, it's the same thing for anybody that starts a small business.
Yeah, that's
they're
true.
They're investing their time and their personal money into getting this business going that on paper, it probably looks good to them. But in the real world, it may or may not actually work out. And they could wind up losing it all. And they're willing to take that chance because they see the rewards that they think are out there for taking this chance if it succeeds. And they think that there's a reasonable enough chance that it will succeed that they're willing to gamble. So, but it's still, I think, a form of gambling. And so you probably have a lot of the same personalities who get into small business and investing in businesses on the stock market or whatever. Same personality as people who do that are professional. Well, I'm not going to say professional gamblers, but maybe professional gamblers, but certainly gamblers.
We'll have more thoughts on gambling in the next episode.
We will.
All right, I will. I have thoughts. Occasionally, there's a thought, once or twice. So Mildred has answered the phone and tells Bernard it's for him. He looks nervous, answers it. Clarissa, on the other end, tells him they have trouble. Her neighbor's camping trip got rained out and they're coming home early. Bernard laughs nervously, and she asks, what are we going to do? He laughs even more, saying, what do you think? Mildred, meanwhile, is telling them he always was a happy kid. She tells him he's the Clarissa says, you're the college kid. Think of something, and then hangs up. Ouch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on the one hand, he is connected to it, so it is his problem as much as it is hers. But on the other hand, like, ouch.
Yeah.
That's putting a lot of pressure on someone.
Yeah.
Especially since she knows he doesn't handle death well.
I was going to just say that. He doesn't handle stressful situations well at all. He's already proven that. And I think Clarissa's, it's not a smart move on her part, but she's probably just a bit put out.
Oh, she's panicking too, for
course,
sure.
In the meantime, she's actually probably thinking of different possibilities, but she's just.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but somebody walked into her house and shot him, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be terrifying to know that he didn't drop dead of a heart attack. Somebody killed him on purpose.
Yeah.
So, Meanwhile, we've got the hitman, who we find out is Mr. Silver, which is such a hitman name, isn't it? Like, I don't know. I can't think of a hitman named Doug. Like, I can't think of, like there's certain names that you just assume for
Fred.
like hitmen and assassins, like, or Glenn. Can you imagine a hitman named Glenn? Like, there's Glenn over there. Yeah, he's a hitman. I don't see it. So yeah, his name is Mr. Silver, and he's speaking to the man who hired him as well as his wife, and they look like the most unassuming old couple. Like, they don't, like you said, the one actor, the kind of guy who always kind of plays a character in distress. Like, they just look like middle class, people who have no business in this world at all whatsoever. So yeah, he's speaking to them, and he's just been told that they aren't going to pay him. And the woman, who we find out later, it's Myrtle, right?
Yeah.
Myrtle and Morty, yeah. And like, she's not impressed.
No. And she is just go for it.
Yeah. She doesn't like, this is a guy who they've hired to murder somebody in cold blood. And it does not occur to her that he might have no issues doing that to them either. So she's just like,
I know, but on the other hand, she is probably smart enough to know that he can't really do much to them at this point. Yeah, he may later. She's maybe not thinking that far ahead, but at this point, she figures she's pretty safe because he doesn't have his money yet.
Yeah.
And he wants his money. And there's going to be a little bit of tolerance there on his part as to how much he's willing to give, if he thinks that, okay, if I do A and B, then I'll get my money, but I'm not going to do C, D, and E. So
she's kind of treating the situation, though, as if she hired like a landscaper, Well,
yeah. In her mind, she did.
In her mind, this is a sort of like legitimate business that if they don't perform the way you want them to, she can complain about them to the Better Business Bureau, where she doesn't understand that it doesn't operate that way, that things don't work that way. So it's quite funny because Morty, she sort of pushes him forward and says, tell him. And then poor Morty is nervous, but he sort of stammers out that there's no proof that Mr. Delanian's dead. And they need proof. Mr. Silver steps forward and describes calmly, little too calmly, how he killed him. That would be chilling for anybody. And poor Morty's almost peeing down his leg. But,
you got to think that there was a communication error somewhere in the initial contracting of this job, because she does say, we hired you to take out Delanian by noon tomorrow. What good does it do us if nobody knows he's dead?
Yeah.
And see, that's the disconnect between these two sides, is that they hired him to kill Delanian by noon. It has to be known. And his attitude is, well, I didn't agree to those terms. I didn't know that was the condition, basically. I hired him. I told you I killed him.
He even says, this isn't how it's done. As almost as if he's kind of like, oh my God, I'm dealing with amateurs. Like, you guys know how this hitman thing works, right? You hire me, I shoot the guy, I get my money. Like,
Yeah.
So he's kind of like trying to yeah, and she's, don't bully us, Buster. You won't get one red cent until we read about it in the papers. And if
it's not done by tomorrow, you're fired.
Okay, you can't fire a hitman. That's not how it works. So you can talk to HR if you're not happy about it.
That's right.
That's not how it works. Either way,
we're writing you up.
Yeah. We switch over back to Steele's apartment, and he's rushing Laura out the door, saying, Catalina, here we come. She asks, what's the rush?
I say,
yeah.
I know it's in service of the plot, but that outfit. Oh.
Laura's outfit?
Yes.
Yeah, I was about to, that was in my notes a little further down, but are we talking about the skirt and the...
Well, and the red jacket over the blue turtleneck, yeah.
Okay, I don't understand. She had two jackets on. we're skipping down. We're skipping ahead. Okay. Well, can we put a pin in this?
Fine, whatever.
We'll come back to it because I have some questions about this outfit. Like, I was actually really confused. So, yeah, he's rushing her out the door. She asks what the rush is, and he reminds her that anytime they've tempted fate has been uncooperative. Yeah. He's not wrong. And unfortunately, they just didn't get out quite in time because he opens the door just as he's saying that they need to leave before something happens, but Mildred and Bernard are on the other side of the door.
Mm-hmm.
Too late. Mildred tells them that Bernard has a surprise for them. He's got tickets to Sinatra's last performance tonight at the Greek Theater. And it's a good thing that they didn't actually go because then we'd have to edit out all that music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she's so excited. Isn't that fantastic? And on any other day for Steele,
that would have been, yeah.
Right? And it's weird that he can't just pivot. Although I mean, I guess if you had a booking or something, but like, he's still going out with Laura. I mean, granted.
Yeah.
Mildred's
yeah,
with
but
him,
I mean,
but
he had plans, and he just doesn't like the idea of changing the plans. Maybe he had something else planned that we don't know of.
Yeah.
You know, to get her in an amorous mood, and Frankie isn't going to do it.
Well, he did do it his way, so maybe Steele wants to do it his way. But either way, I know I get it. And it could be that he had, like I said, a hotel room booked or something like that, which in the real world, you would just say, you know, thanks a lot, but we have somewhere to be. But in the Remington Steele world, that can't happen. No. For the purposes of the plot. Bernard says that he wanted to do something nice for everything that they have done for his Aunt Mildred. Steele does try to get out of it, but Laura tells him they would like nothing better. Mildred asks if Bernard can stay in the apartment until they get back, and Bernard sort of sheepishly explains that he can only get 3 tickets, and he has a midterm he needs to study for. Mildred praises his diligence, and Steele tells Bernard to make himself at home, kind of underneath his breath. Like, okay, yeah, I guess.
I love the way he pronounces Bernard, too. Bernard,
yes. Very British pronunciation of it, yeah. And as he leaves, you can see he's not happy. No. Probably the only time in his life he's been like not happy to go see somebody like Sinatra, right? Yeah. So once the door shuts behind him, Bernard gives a sigh of relief. In the parking garage, we see a convertible with Harold's dead body. This is very Weekend at Bernie's. I don't know if have you ever seen that movie?
I have not, but my response was when in that first shot where they show him in the convertible, he's leaning back, he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, he's got the dark sunglasses on. It looks a bit like Howard Hessman, Dr. Johnny Fever from WKRP. But,
yeah. Well, Weekend at Bernie's didn't come out until after this. It came out in 1989, but it's kind of like a black comedy where their boss Bernie dies, and these 2 like insurance corporation employees, they arrive at his house, and they basically attempt to convince people that he's still alive until they leave to prevent them from being suspected of killing him. So they basically, like, there's all these parts of the film where they're like dressing him up and putting him in like weird positions and like just trying to make it look as if Bernie's alive. So yeah, this made me think of it because he's in the car and he's got this football outfit still on and he's like got the cigarette hanging out of his mouth. It was just
and in a sense, that's exactly what the plot of this episode is.
Yeah. It was just funny because usually Remington Steele references movies from the past. And obviously, like I said, they couldn't have predicted that this movie would be made. But it is funny how that it's pretty much the same plot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Bernard asks what that is. And Clarissa says she was trying to look inconspicuous. And Bernard says what I think most of us were thinking: a dead man inside a convertible smoking a cigarette is inconspicuous.
Well, now, see, that's the thing is I think Bernard is, okay, he's a bit tense. I think he's taking it out on Clarissa because if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because if you're going to leave a dead man sitting in the front seat of a convertible and you want it to look inconspicuous, why wouldn't you put a cigarette in his mouth? I mean,
well, it's not the cigarette.
Granted, okay, take the shoulder pads off. Yeah. What was that?
I think it's the football uniform that's the inconspicuous part. Like,
well, okay, I was going to say that because take the shoulder pads out, but you know, even back in the 80s, wearing somebody's oversized football jersey was a thing. And it wasn't, I don't mean women doing it. I mean guys doing it too, so it wouldn't have been that out of place and weird if the shoulder pads had been taken off.
Right. Yeah. It's clear he's wearing the uniform, not just the jersey. So yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, she kind of has a good comeback. She says her hearse is on back order, which I find funny. Yeah. So they pull him out of the car and we see them lugging him towards the elevator. Again, I just kept thinking Weekend at Bernie's this whole scene, because there's a woman with a small dog who walks by. The dog chews on his shoe. And she looks at them suspiciously. Bernard says, "Good old Uncle Harold. A few too many drinks and he's out like a light." And Clarissa adds that he loves his costume parties as they get on the elevator. Mm-hmm. Which, okay. Bernard and the woman exchange one more suspicious look as the elevator closes. Inside, we see Harold in Steele's bathtub. Clarissa is not impressed. She can't believe they only have the apartment for another 3 hours. I don't know what she was expecting him to do. Like this... This is one of those moments where you're like, just be grateful that you got
3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Bernard insists that he has a plan, and he asks for Jill's number. Jill is obviously another a colleague of Clarissa's. She says, "This is no time to party." And okay, I'm sorry. Does she honestly think that Bernard's idea of a good time is calling up one of her friends while there's a dead guy in the bathtub? Because I would have to wonder what Bernard's proclivities are if that's the case.
Well, and if she's thinking that, what has he done in the past to indicate that would be? That's what I was because he insists he's not one of her clients, but anyway. So he asks for the number. She gives it to him. On the phone, he asks if Jill still has the steamer trunk, after clarifying that she's not being audited. It's one of my favorite, but no, I'm not. You're not being audited. Yeah. So then she confirms that she has it, and he asks her to bring it to the apartment, and he gives her the address. I've got a question here, because... I've got questions, too.
Okay, I have 2 steamer trunks that my grandfather took with him when he went to Korea. He fought in Korea in the 1950s. He took 2, one big steamer trunk, one little steamer trunk. And when he passed away, my dad was going to sell them. And I was like, no, I'll take them. They go for now, sometimes $500, $600, $700 if they're in good condition, because they're considered, an antique and stuff. Mm-hmm. So Jill's just totally cool with being told to bring something to a random apartment and give it to them. It's a weird thing to do, to call somebody up and say, "Hey, do you know that steamer trunk that you have?" Which I don't know if it would be worth as much back in the 80s as it is now, but either way.
Well, also, was it possible to buy them new at that time? Or maybe even now?
I don't know.
Could it be one that she had purchased as part of a move or something, and it had no real sentimental or financial value to her because it was just something she bought for utilitarian purposes as opposed to collector's purposes?
You can buy them. I just Googled it.
Okay.
They run, from what it looks like, between $80 to $200 or so if they're not vintage antiques.
Okay.
So, maybe you could buy them new. But either way, he's basically saying, "Hey, can you bring something that you own to this apartment and give it to us?" It feels weird that there's no explanation, and she's just like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Hey,
if they're $500 to $1,000 or more an hour, what's a couple $100 in a steamer trunk, enough. Right?
Yeah, I guess so. Clarissa asks what he's doing as he gets the number for Speedy Delivery Services, and I got a kick out of this because when I was in university, there was a illegal cab company, and I don't know if they still exist, but this is pre-Uber, so when you consider that your only options if you're a student to go out drinking are either to get a designated driver or a cab. Sometimes those of us who were poor, starving university students and only had money for the booze, not the ride itself, would partake of this illegal cab service that would basically charge a flat rate instead of a meter, which I guess now is what Uber and some of the Lyft companies do, right? Like, is that not how it works with?
No,
or do you guys still go by?
They basically have the same kind of billing structure as a regular cab company. They have a flat rate for the pickup,
right? Okay.
So like $3.75 for flag drop is what the cabs call it, and then it's so much per mile. And then I think they also calculate time. So if a trip is calculated to take X amount of time, but it takes longer than that because of traffic delays or other things, I think there's some additional charge on top of that. But they have a similar pricing structure to regular cab companies.
I've never used one, so I don't know. But this particular illegal cab would not only get you to the bars for, I think it was $10, but they would pack as many people into said car as could humanly be done, and in some cases the trunk.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, I did a trunk ride once. So
now I've heard people doing that to get into drive-in theaters, but never to get into a bar.
No, we did that. I did one stint in the trunk. But anyway, so this company was called Speedy Delivery. It was not billed as like those who knew, right? So you would call for a delivery and Speedy would show up and they'd be delivering people. That was the, how it worked.
That was their logic.
We all just kept our mouths shut. And if it still exists, sorry, because, probably just, but I'm assuming it doesn't now. I don't know. But yeah, so he calls Speedy Delivery and I'm like, oh my God, he's calling me a legal cab company. No, not the same place. So he calls Speedy Delivery Service and then he asks them how soon they could get a steamer trunk to Santa Barbara. They ask him the weight. He estimates about 180 pounds. I'm thinking no. I'm going to call no on that because, first of all, it's not just the trunk. It's the dead man you're putting in the trunk. And you will not be able to convince me that Howard Delanian weighs 180 pounds. Like, that man's at least 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? He's tall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So then you've got the trunk
estimate
itself.
Is way off, but that's okay. They'll just bill him for the difference.
Yeah. I just thought that was kind of funny because I'm like, but then you've got the trunk, and those things are not light usually; they're pretty heavy. So, yeah, it's definitely wrong on the weight there.
Mm-hmm.
He gives them the address, asks how quickly they can get there. They tell him within an hour, and he hangs up. He's relieved. He tells Clarissa they are sending her brother a belated Christmas present.
I've got issues.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go for it, because I'm guessing they're the same issues.
Well, first of all, does he not know that bodies are going to start stinking very, very quickly?
Okay, yeah, that's one thing, for sure.
And then second of all, does he not think that Clarissa's brother is going to open that trunk when it gets there and there's a dead body? Oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder what we should do with this. Oh, I don't know. Maybe just kind of... No, so there are going to be phone calls to the police made, and everybody's going to know where it came from.
That was what I had in my notes because I thought, like, because she just smiles and says, "I like your style," and it's like,
And of course, this brings up the whole issue of their family relations.
Well, that too, because I thought, this only works if her brother works for the mob, right?
Well, that's possible too.
Yeah, like if they're sending him a buddy, he opens the steamer trunk and he's like, "Oh, Clarissa. My God, she's at it again." Like, otherwise, I don't know about you, but if I get a steamer trunk delivered to my door and there's a dead football player in it, I'm calling somebody.
Somebody, yeah.
So yeah, that's. You'd think that they would at least call the brother and give him a heads up. Like, yeah, so there's a dead guy coming to you.
Well, obviously, there's not a good relationship between Clarissa and her brother. So, because she's taking far too much pleasure in the idea.
Yeah, she thinks it's hilarious. And I mean, I played some pranks on my siblings in my time, but never a dead body. There was one time I took my nephew out to see a movie, and he was like, we went to see one of the Despicable Me movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was before we had our daughter, and I wanted to see the movie. And so I was like, "Oh, we'll take James. He's little. We won't look like the weird adult couple in the theater without a kid with us, right?" So I may have told this story before, I don't know, but we took him. And I said to my brother before we left that I joked we didn't want to look like the weird couple without a kid, right? So we went, and we were being nice too. I like my nephew.
Mm-hmm.
We come back to the car after the movie's over, and there's a note left on the windshield of my car that says, "Everyone knew that wasn't your kid, you weirdos." And I drive home to Belmont, which is like 20 minutes. Like it was in a different city, this movie theater. And I get home and I said to my brother, "Tell me that you didn't drive all the way to St. Thomas just to put that windshield on my car." And he's like, "Well, we had to return a movie too, so I was like, "Joke's on you. He's had 2 like 16-ounce Cokes. If I'm getting him to bed tonight, see ya." So yeah, but I've never sent him a dead body in a steamer trunk. So yeah.
And now you've got an idea.
I do. Yeah. Next time I have a
Next
dead
Christmas.
football player dropped at my door, I'll send it to him. Yeah. So the buzzer at the door rings. They both look at each other nervously, and Bernard says someone is early. They open the door. Why would Steele be buzzing his own apartment? Did I miss something later on?
That the plot, service of the plot.
Cool.
There is no rational explanation for it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure.
Unless, and this just occurred to me, maybe Steele thought that the excuse of having to stay in, only getting 3 tickets and having to stay to do studying just didn't ring true to Steele. And so he wanted to make sure he wasn't interrupting anything that he might not want to interrupt. So he did that as a courtesy.
I don't know that he would jump to that conclusion having met Bernard for all of 10 minutes, especially when Bernard seems to be
I know
as straight and narrow as they come, right?
I know,
like
but I mean, that's the only quote
fair
rational explanation
it's
I can come up with.
It is weird. Yeah. So they open the door. It's Mildred, Laura, and Steele, and they're soaked. Mildred tells them the concert was rained out. Bernard is surprised, and under her breath, Clarissa tells him it's an outdoor theater. So Bernard probably should have looked into that when he bought the tickets, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the fact that they still had the tickets on sale and the concert was still scheduled indicates that even the promoters didn't anticipate a weather issue.
Well, it's LA. I mean, whoever expects rain?
They say it never rains in Southern California.
Yeah, exactly. So, although it does seem to when it serves the plot. So here we are. Mildred sees Clarissa and asks who she is, and Bernard gives them her name, saying that she is helping him with his Latin. Sure. That's the worst excuse that he could possibly think of.
Yeah. Yes.
Just saying. Her beeper goes off, and she tells him that she has to check in. She picks up the phone, and she's obviously speaking to a customer whom she says she remembers, adding, "Oh, the trampoline." Wow.
Oh, and she's a gymnast, too.
Yeah. I'm guessing her clientele is very
diverse.
Quirky. Because you've got one who likes to be cheered with pom-poms, and then apparently one with a trampoline. And
very energetic clients. Yes.
Yeah, they're athletic for sure.
Yeah.
So Bernard says she's a tutor and a gymnast. She hangs up, and Steele goes to hang up the coats. Bernard tries to stop him, offering to do it himself, but Steele says there's no point in both of them getting soaked. As he goes in, you can see them cringing too. That's quite kind of funny. Like they're just like, oh no, their eyes are shut. They're like, something's happening. Laura tells Bernard the tickets were a lovely gesture. Bernard barely hears Laura. He's preoccupied. Clarissa tries to get his attention, but Steele reappears. The face on Steele is just chef's kiss. Like, it's just one of those moments of physical comedy that Brosnan is so good at. Because you can see it. He's just like, why, what's going on here? He says he asks Bernard to speak with him. So they go into the bathroom. And Steele says he knows that college kids play pranks, but a dead quarterback is a bit excessive. Yeah. Bernard insists.
I mean,
and here's I'll get to it later because I have some other issues with this. But like Bernard insists there's a good explanation for it, but he doesn't want Aunt Mildred to find out. Steele sees the point, promises to get rid of her, and they're going to have a long talk with his Latin tutor.
Yeah.
Bernard nods, and the two of them go back out. Mildred asks if everything's okay. Steele says he just wanted to thank Bernard personally. She tells him it's the thought that counts as the buzzer goes again. Yeah. Things are getting weird. Mm-hmm. They open the door, and the two more escorts, come in with the steamer trunk. They say hi to Bernard. Bernard tells Mildred, this is his study group.
Sure.
Okay. I love Mildred. I adore Mildred. She's smarter than this. Here. Yeah, but I don't know if it's just because this is her prize nephew who, in her eyes, can do no wrong. So that's why she doesn't see it. But in any other situation, Mildred's no dummy. She'd peg this. She would immediately be like, that's no study group.
Yeah, guys like Bernard don't get study buddies like that.
No, they definitely don't. Who have pagers that have to check in and have, like that. All of this is adding up. It's 1 + 1 = 7. It doesn't compute. Nope. And so the only reason I can think that Mildred does not put it together is because in her mind, Bernard is an angel and she just believes him, right? Because
absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense. Laura, however, is looking around like, I don't buy this.
Something's not right with this picture.
She's looking at Bernard. She's looking at the study group. She's like, don't think so. Because one of the women, another beeper goes off. Mm-hmm. She says, she's got to use the phone. And Mildred comments on how popular they are.
Yeah.
Laura
asks Latin is very, very popular. It's one of your top 10 courses of study in universities.
Hear it all the time. Yeah. Absolutely. Laura inquires about the trunk, and Steele, thinking fast on his feet, says he hired it before the buzzer goes off again. Speedy Delivery arrive, announce themselves, and tell them that they're here to pick up the trunk. The other woman's beeper goes off. She goes to use the phone. They're really busy, these women.
Yes. Latin is very popular.
It is, yeah. So, Laura demands to know what's going on because she's clocking all of this and she's not buying it. On the phone, the other escort says it sounds like fun, but she'll have to charge extra.
If nobody knows what's going on by now,
Laura
it's because they don't want to.
Or at least she's starting to, because you can see it on her face, right?
Yeah.
And then Steele, knowing that Laura is catching on and knowing that he can't count on Laura because he hasn't filled her in because he didn't invite her to come into the bathroom with him.
Yeah.
I have some issues with this.
What, about the fact that he didn't invite her into the bathroom with him?
Well, not to go to the bathroom, but like when he sees the dead body, he could have asked Laura to come in there first or something, but that I can understand if he doesn't do, but it's later on that I'm like wanting to wring his neck. But anyway, so he jumps in, right? He says he hired it, and they're all looking confused. Steele tells Bernard to confess that it's an initiation for a fraternity. Mm-hmm. Mildred asks if they ruined it for him, and Steele says no, he still has a good chance of getting the trunk too. The delivery man fills in the location, and Steele adds that he still has time to find the scavenger hunt items, such as the Hollywood Boulevard street sign. And then Bernard adds the Bob Uecker baseball card.
Yeah.
Clarissa adds the hubcap from the police car.
I'm sorry. The Bob Uecker baseball card, that's...
not something I would expect on a scavenger hunt.
No. And hubcap from a police car sounds a bit too much like a TV sitcom scavenger hunt.
Because I would imagine, I've never stolen a hubcap, but I imagine it's not easy to get it off the tire. So.
Well, and the other thing is that I don't know how it was in Los Angeles in the 1980s, but I know up here in Anchorage in 2025, I don't think the police cars have hubcaps. They just have a blank wheel there that they just put on, and there's no hubcaps.
Our winter tires don't have them, like our snow tires. but our regular tires do. So
Yeah. But
But
I don't know if police cars routinely had hubcaps or not. Well, I guess if they didn't, that would make it a very good
indication something's up.
well, no, or it might make it a very good scavenger hunt prize.
Oh, yeah. True.
So I don't know.
So Steele, this is okay. Again, pin in this as well. Steele puts a coat around Laura's shoulders. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mildred's and urges them out the door along with the other escort. Clarissa and Bernard watch in fascination as they all leave. They're rather impressed at his ability to get rid of them all. And Laura, obviously not wanting to be shooed out the door, but she goes anyway. So
yeah, she knows something's up, but yeah.
Yeah. Once the door is shut, Clarissa tells him she likes his style, and Steele says, let's forget the formalities, demanding to know who the gentleman is that is not taking a bath in his bathtub. Bernard tells him that his name is Harold Delanian. Steele recognizes the name. He owns an engineering company. Bernard adds that they had found out that Delanian Industries was about to take over Milgram Industries. Steele wonders who they found, like how they found out. And Clarissa says that he told her so they decided to buy some Delanian stock. Or sorry, how they found out. That's my typo. Is that not insider trading?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there was a question about that?
No,
yeah, it's definitely insider trading.
Okay, because I don't understand the stock market. Like, I genuinely, anytime I see movies that involve the stock market or stocks and things like that, like, I get confused. So this bit here, I was thinking, okay, that's illegal, correct? Like, he's still committing a crime by...
Yeah, unless you're a politician who's making laws that affect these companies, and then if you know how the laws that you're going to pass are going to affect their company's stock, and then you either buy or sell, depending on what the result's going to be, and you make a killing, and nobody can ask you questions about it because I'm an elected official. How dare you ask me?
But that's what Martha Stewart went to jail for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Steele wonders, like I said, how they found out. Clarissa says that he told her so. They decided to buy some Delanian stock. Bernard says he invested money from Clarissa's friends. Aunt Mildred put in some of Steele's money, and he even put in money from the student treasury. Steele asks, and bless him for trying to be delicate here, because he's clearly trying to find a term that won't sound offensive. Why the word escort didn't come into his head, I don't know, but he settles on Lady of the Night, which, okay. And
that's
she
his old
tells
movie
him,
interest, I think, coming back up. That's
yeah, it's definitely a more sort of like film noir term for it. And then she says they prefer the term love broker, which I have never heard, not once.
I have not either, and quite frankly, I just can't imagine them going around calling themselves that.
No, that's a weird one. It's just love broker. I'm sorry.
You might as well be going down the road singing "Love for Sale."
Well, that and like you call insurance, like people insurance brokers. So like, are there premiums? Do people pay monthly premiums? Like, is there and anyway, I don't want to know. I'm just saying it's a weird term. Like, it would be better if she had said, we prefer the term escort or, call girl. I thought those two terms were interchangeable, but if I was wrong, then, either way.
Well, I mean, I could be wrong. To me, I've always thought of them as being different, but anyway.
So Steele wonders if Bernard is her pimp. Because definitely that's what I think of when I think of a pimp. I think of, Bernard.
But Bernard, yeah.
So he says that her brother goes to the university and he started doing her taxes. He says he recommended her to all her associates, and pretty soon he was investing their excess capital. I'm very curious about how you do the taxes of somebody whose profession is illegal.
I think that's called money laundering.
Cool. So Bernard is not only a insider, Mildred's perfect angel of a nephew.
That's right.
Is a money launderer and is involved in insider trading.
Yeah. That money laundering is taking dirty money that has been obtained by illegal methods, and washing it through a system of businesses or other things, so that on paper, it looks like it's legitimate income. Yeah.
This was
Bernard is quite the enterprising young man.
Yeah. This is a real entrepreneur here. This is what you learn at university, folks. No.
Yes.
And that's actually what Steele says. He says, "Well, you're quite the enterprising young man." He says he likes to keep busy. Steele points out, "Well, you're also a murder suspect." And Clarissa speaks up, says, "Oh, he didn't kill him. She and Harold were doing the cheerleader and football star, which they do every Thursday." This isn't just like a one-time thing. This is a standing weekly date.
Yes.
Which again plays into that call girl situation in the sense that they often have regulars because they vet their clients. They typically are less likely to be assaulted or physically harmed because they make sure that the people that they're allowing to hire them are people that they trust and they know. But yeah, she does this.
Although that
Thursday.
theory falls down a little bit later here.
True, but yeah, I mean, it looks like Clarissa at least has a head on her shoulders in the sense that she seems to genuinely be a kind person. And again, this is where I think the episode plays against stereotypes that we see of sex workers, right? Because oftentimes with TV and movies, you see either the hooker with the heart of gold, who is Julia Roberts, right? Who is, I mean, somebody who is on the street corners are less likely to be as squeaky clean as Julia Roberts' character is, because oftentimes they're being trafficked. They're not there willingly. It's usually very, very dangerous for them, and generally there's drugs and other things involved.
I was going to say, and if they're not being trafficked by somebody else, they're out there trying to earn money for their habits.
Yeah, and whereas Clarissa, who is obviously making very good money, could come across as cynical and like, I'm only after their cash, but she seemed to care about Harold. Like she seemed to like the guy, right? I mean, yeah, I know that they're paid to act to a certain extent, but you know, you don't do a weekly Thursday football rah-rah unless A, he's paying you very well, and B, you don't mind it, right?
Yeah.
Like I assume there's some scruples that you'd have. So they definitely kind of give her that empathetic element, right? They do every Thursday. She says 1 minute he was fine, the next he was dead on her living room floor. Bernard adds that if Milgram Industries finds out that he's dead before the takeover, the stocks will plummet. They'll lose all of their money. So that's not good.
Yeah.
Clarissa asks if they can, says if they can keep them from finding out until tomorrow, they will be home free. They ask him to help them, and Bernard points out that it won't make any difference to Mr. Delanian, which, okay.
Yeah. What does he care?
Make a difference, I guess, maybe to his family if he has any, but sure. You know? And here's my issue with Steele. He's not impressed with the situation, right?
Okay.
That's fair. And he makes it known he's not doing it for them. He's doing it to protect his sweet Aunt Mildred, who wouldn't want to see her nephew go to prison. Bernard asks what to do with the body, and Steele wonders what one does with the dearly departed. This is where he should have picked up the phone and called Laura. Because this is exactly the sort of behavior that led to the freeze in the first flippin' place. Now, granted, this situation is not his fault in any way, shape, or form. But he still doesn't tell her about it. She has to find out by walking in on what looks to be a compromising situation, and then he has to, oh no, it's not what it looks like. He could have just phoned her. I get why he didn't tell her when Mildred was in the room. Unless he could have somehow gotten her into the bathroom and said, like, we got an issue here. I get ushering them both out the door.
Well, at this point, though, Laura has, at least within the last short period of time, just left the apartment. So she may not be where she can get a phone call. So that may be a little bit of a justification or an excuse. But, yeah, he probably should have roped her. I was going to say roped her in, but at least brought her into it, because it's going to affect her at some point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And if he wants her to cover for Clarissa and Bernard and whatnot. Like, she needs to know what she's covering for, because she almost blew it when the trunk showed up, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I mean. Like, he's been doing this all season. Daniel shows up with the whole, situation where they had to go to England and he had to pretend to be Reggie Whitewood. He should have told her about that. He didn't. Instead, he hid it from her and he went off and they did their thing. Like, he doesn't.
Well, I guess you could make an argument that he is still falling back into old habits of not wanting her to find out these things because, it's one of those situations where no matter what you do, you're going to get in trouble, but maybe I'll be in less trouble if she doesn't know about it until afterwards. The better to ask forgiveness than permission type thing. And so he's thinking, well, if I just deal with the situation, I get it cleaned up, and then when she finds out later, it's all taken care of. So at this point, at that point, she's not going to be as upset as if she has to be involved in dealing with it. But yeah, you'd think he'd have learned his lesson after about the 42nd time.
This is literally honestly, I think this episode more than anything else, and it might sound weird because it's not even anything that has to do with him. It has to do with Mildred's nephew. But this is the real foreshadowing for bonds, to be honest. And both of them involve Clarissa, because he's going out of his way to do these elaborate things to hide this from Laura when he really should be bringing her into it. He just should, right? There's no reason why. It's not even his past coming back to haunt him in this case. Yes, there's a dead man in his bathroom, but it's nothing to do with him.
Yeah, it's not his dead man.
It's not. This one's not his. So, yeah. So that drives me crazy. So he realizes they take him to the morgue, and even if he just picked up and called her loft and left a message and said, "You need to call me as soon as you get this," right? Like, because there's a car in the phone in the limo, but yeah. So Clarissa looks happy with the plan. In the limo, we see Laura dropping Mildred off. She, being Laura, can't stop thinking about the situation. She kind of mutters Latin tutor and gymnast, right? She doesn't buy it. So she tells Fred to go back to Mr. Steele, or the Fred of the day, to go back to Mr. Steele's, and she will pay the speeding tickets.
Yeah.
Wasn't she the one who criticized Mr. Steele and his lack of original?
Yeah. Well, hey, he's got to be original. She doesn't have to.
That's true.
She just makes the rules. She doesn't have to live by them.
Back at Clarissa's apartment, the hitman, Mr. Silver, is inside. He's searching the place. He sees the football that Mr. Delaney had dropped, so he knows he was there. Makes his way over to the couch, where he sees Mr. Steele's phone number, because Clarissa did the thing that they always do on TV shows, where they write down the address and then they leave it there. Like, I don't understand why. If you're writing down an address, it's because you're not sure you're going to remember it. You take that with you.
Yeah. But then the bad guy couldn't find it and use it.
I mean, they could do that thing where they put the paper over and they use pencil and they get the impression, right? You could do that.
Yeah. You could do that, yeah.
But, I mean, nowadays, it makes sense. It's funny because, I mean, not to harp on today's technology versus technology of the past, but in today's world, that would make sense because you would assume that somebody wrote it down and took a picture of it with their phone and then just left it there. I do that all the time.
You would?
Yeah, because I'll lose the paper, but I won't lose my phone.
Well, why bother with the paper in the first place? Just type the address into your Maps app. It'll remember it.
If I'm getting the address on the phone, I'm writing it down.
It has speakerphone capability.
Oh, I can't do those. I can't do three things at once.
Then just have the person send you the address in a text message or send it to you they have them do it in the map and then send you the map coordinates and
really
it pops up.
Picking apart my system here. I don't appreciate it.
Your system's whack.
I have all sorts of weird stuff I'm taking pictures of so I don't forget it, right? But that would be the only situation where I could think that makes sense. Either way, he sees the address. He sees the address, and he knows where she is. He calls Mr. Steele's apartment. Now, we've had this conversation before, but if you're at somebody else's house and their phone rings, do you answer it?
No.
Don't answer other people's phones. Like, especially, Clarissa, looking at you, if you're hiding a dead body and you know that that dead body is there because somebody killed it,
Yeah.
don't pick up the phone.
And then not only that, but add that to what you just said a little bit ago about vetting their clients. Hi,
Right?
Clarissa. My name's Bill. I'm from San Francisco. My cousin said you're a nice girl. Let's get together. Oh, okay.
Well, she does say she's busy at the moment. And then she realizes something's not right and asks how he got the number. So she at least kind of like clues in there in that respect.
Kind of, yeah.
I imagine if it had been legitimate request, she would have met him with somebody else there just to make sure. But either way, he knows he's caught and hangs up. And then she hangs up and panics because she realizes she's made a boo-boo.
Yeah.
Yeah. She opens the door to run out, but then she sees the elevator's about to open, which, unless he's got a cell phone, which technically they existed, but were very unreliable. He
And very large.
Yeah. There's no way he'd be there that fast. So either way, she panics.
Well,
she bolts down the
could have
stairwell.
been, if he was calling like from down in the lobby of the building, if the building had a lobby that had phones in it. I mean, theoretically, high-speed elevators, yeah.
True. Yeah. Either way, she bolts down the stairwell. She's gone.
Yeah. In this case, it's a wise move to just assume that you don't want to be seen leaving the building by whoever's there. So, yeah, whether it's the bad guy or not, just, better be safe than sorry.
Yeah. And then she leaves his door open, which we know doesn't matter anyway. So
that's right.
The elevator door is open. Laura steps out and goes into Steele's apartment with the door still open. She calls out for him, but nobody's there. Now, here's the coat thing, okay? So she takes off her coat.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's wearing this, what looks to be another coat. Like it's a pink sweater thing with this turtleneck underneath. It's just hideous. Okay.
Yeah, it's that red, unless that's a one-piece thing where it's a red top with a blue collar as part of that top. But to me, it looks like it's a turtleneck underneath a red jacket.
Like it looks like a jacket.
A Mildred's jacket.
Yeah, it looks like a jacket. And she takes off another coat. So it's like, it's the weirdest outfit. And it's LA. Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's not that cold out there. You don't need 3 layers.
Well, they did say it was raining. Now I can tell you, people in LA have this really cockeyed sense of temperature.
Oh, I know.
When my kids were little, we were living in Oregon at the time, and we were preparing to move back to Alaska, and we wanted to take them to Disneyland so that, because once we got to Alaska, we didn't figure we'd ever have a chance to do it. So we wanted to take them to Disneyland, and it was in September, I think, maybe 1st of September. And we got down there and it was a cold day. There's sarcasm in that word there.
Yep.
It was in the low 70s.
Okay,
and people down there had jackets and heavy sweaters on. I mean, we're dying from heat stroke, but yeah, they've got heavy jackets and sweaters on. So,
okay, I got to just quickly do that conversion because I don't know what 70 would be. Okay, 21. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
so
I had to quickly convert that to Celsius.
So, you add to the fact that we now know it's night and it was raining because the Frank Sinatra concert got rained out. So maybe in the low to mid 60s Fahrenheit, which would be a few degrees lower than what you said in Celsius. But
then she's got a miniskirt on.
Yeah. Well, hey, gotta be stylish.
Like, and this is the weirdest part of the outfit because that is not a Laura. Like the last time she wore a miniskirt, she was pretending to be a hooker.
Yeah.
It was literally in that episode with the chocolate, right? Mm-hmm. And she was, so she's got this black miniskirt and this sweater that looks not like a coat with the turtleneck under. It's the weirdest outfit, and it's not doing anything for her. It serves
the plot,
I guess.
But yeah, it's like I said, it's ugly.
It is ugly. It is an ugly outfit for sure.
Yes.
To quote, and you'll know this reference now because you've seen the first episode. But to quote Cordelia from Buffy, the sweater looks like she's seen the softer side of Sears. and the black skirt looks like Clarissa should be wearing it. So you put the two together, and that's... yeah. Anyway, so she looks around, and then she goes into Mr. Steele's room. Nobody's there. Comes back out, notices a cup of tea on the table, and it's still hot. So she's like, okay. She sits down. She's determined to wait for someone to return. So then we switch over.
Got a really vicious look on her face when she sits down.
And
it's like, oh, somebody's going to die.
Yeah, because she knows she's being lied to again, and she's probably pretty flippin' sick of it. And I don't really blame her at this point. Like, it must be getting extremely frustrating to always be out of the loop, especially when you're the boss and you're supposed to be always in the loop.
Yeah.
You are the loop, you know?
Yeah.
So then we switch over. We've got Steele and Bernard at the morgue, wheeling a gurney with the corpse under a blanket. Bernard doesn't think this is going to work. Steele references the film The Corpse Came COD. Bernard is confused, and Steele explains the plot. He still doesn't get it. He promises to explain it later.
Okay, and this guy is doing their finances, their taxes, and their investments, and he can't understand something as simple as the plot for COD. I would be worried about getting audited at this point.
Fair enough. Yeah. They wheel the body up to a man at the desk, and Steele, in a very weird accent. I'm not entirely sure what this accent is supposed to be.
I don't know either.
It's it's not a British accent that I can place, right? And I don't know. Yeah, we got a new guest for your hotel. Like what is that? And the man tells him, or I don't know what to call him, the attendant, the
morgue attendant, yeah, I guess
he tells him they can't just leave him there. Steele says, "He's dead. He's yours." The attendant says the paperwork has to come through. Bernard mutters they're doomed, and this is the point where, like, Steele, you shouldn't have him there. He's a liability, right? Because if you're doing something this ballsy, you have to sell it, because otherwise you're going to get caught. There's two types of people in the world. People that can just confidently walk into a lie and pull it off because they're that confident, right? If you see them going in, there's the place that says no admittance, and they're walking in, clearly they're allowed in because there's a sign, right?
That's
it's
right.
That kind of thing.
And everybody knows that a sign is the ultimate authority and control. I mean,
yeah. So Bernard, he's we're doomed. And the man, the attendant, observes that he doesn't look too good. And Steele says, "What do you expect? He's dead." Which, the morgue attendant says, "Not you, not him, his partner." Bernard says he's not good with death. And the man jokes that he picked a hell of an occupation. Steele, getting impatient, telling him that their stiffs piling up like cordwood. Is something going on?
It's just a busy night.
It's a busy night, apparently. And then the morgue attendant asks them what they're trying to pull. And this is the part where Steele, it's brilliant, right?
Yeah. You says, tell the truth, but you tell it in such a way that it sounds like a lie.
It sounds crazy, right? You got me. Me and Bart here, we knocked off the dead guy and decided to get rid of him in the morgue. He pauses. There's a long, anxious moment. You can tell Bernard thinks they're screwed. But thankfully, the morgue attendant assumes that they're joking and basically just says he's going to list him as a John Doe until the paperwork comes in. You got to sign for it, and it better come in.
And then he references Steele's earlier comment, because if they don't, you're going to be cordwood.
Yeah. So Steele signs it and then leaves with Bernard, waving goodbye and looking rather shocked that it worked. Then we go back to the apartment. The door buzzer sounds, and Laura gets up. And like I said, she's still in this outfit, which maybe this is why Silver is so ready to believe that she's Clarissa.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like I said, service to the plot.
Yeah. So she opens the door, assuming it's Steele, and asks if he forgot his key again. So I guess maybe that's what happened earlier?
Could be.
Right? Because... yeah, but
Could
no,
be.
it's the hitman.
I mean,
it's just weird. Because if he had forgot his key, who was he assuming was going to answer?
That's right.
Right? Like you don't buzz if you think nobody's home.
That's right.
So, yeah. She opens the door, assuming it's Steele. Oh, sorry, I said that. But it's Silver. He says, hello, Clarissa. Well, he doesn't say it like that, because that would be Hannibal Lecter and not... I don't know what's worse, a hitman or a cannibal. Cannibal. Probably the cannibal.
Yeah, I'll go with cannibal on that one, yeah.
He says, hello, Clarissa. I thought I would take the chance you're free tonight. Laura, being an idiot, doesn't correct him.
No.
I get that she's curious. I get that she wants to know what's going on. But come on. Like...
And if you already know that there's something going on and Clarissa's involved in it somehow, you probably don't want to try to let somebody think that you're Clarissa because you don't know what you're walking into.
Like, he might not have believed her anyway. He might have just assumed she was lying.
But yeah.
But she plays along with it. She allows him to think that she's Clarissa, which makes it harder to say, no, I was just kidding later on. Because he goes on to observe that the apartment is nice and she chooses her friends well. She asks him, are you a friend? And he says, well, we can have a good time or a bad time. And from what he knows, she likes to have a good time. So Laura's clearly clued into what Clarissa's profession is, at least. She asks how he knows that and he reminds her that his cousin recommended her. He mentions that he had a package dropped off that afternoon. Laura asks what the package was, and he says, you know, and you have it here. She asks how he knows that.
That's kind of a unwarranted assumption on his part, that she would have it there, assuming that this is Clarissa.
True.
Because if I were Clarissa, I wouldn't necessarily have it there. I would have had it somewhere else, and I might be hiding out here.
Right.
But I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be toting it around with me. It's like, okay, let's go to the new location. Oh, let's get the baggage. Well, don't forget the body.
She doesn't have it there. Like, they took it somewhere else, right? Because they didn't want to leave it there. So, yeah. She asks how he knows that. He says that she doesn't. He says, who else? He tells her to give him the package. She asks why she should. And he laughs, obviously getting tired of the game, pulls out a gun, and advances on her. And you can see Laura's face change here because she thought she was, I don't know, at least marginally in control, but not so much, right?
Yeah.
He shows her the gun, asks if she knows what that is. Laura says she has a passing familiarity with it, accurate considering they can never find the gun.
Yeah, that's true.
So, he puts the suppressor, see what I did there, on it, and tells her it's so they don't disturb the neighbors.
Yeah.
She tells him sarcastically, that's awfully considerate of you.
Yes, really.
He asks her again where the package is. Laura attempts to backtrack, saying she was kidding. She doesn't have any package. Yeah, he's not going to buy that.
No.
He cocks the gun, and she asks him if he seriously thinks she would have it here. He asks where, and she says that she'll show him. He says she's a real smart girl, and she says not from where I'm standing. And same. Not from where we're watching either, because
nope.
Yeah, smart would have been to at least try to convince him that you're not. I mean, she could have pulled out her ID. Does she not have that on her?
Well, I'm sure she does, but at this point, that might have been even worse.
I guess that might not have helped. So yeah. In the car, he asks which way, and Laura, trying to think fast, tells him to turn left. He does and makes small talk. This is the weirdest scene, right? He's making small talk about going on vacation, asking if she's ever been to the Caribbean, right? Like, this is water cooler hitman talk. I guess if you've ever wondered what hitmen talk about at the water cooler, this is it. She sees a police car as they pull up to it. She looks over and contemplates.
Have you ever thought about if a hitman has a family? A lot of business people, they've got to take this trip, family vacation, and I really don't want to spend all that money on my family. But if I turn it into a business trip, I can write it off. Have you thought if a hitman takes his family on a business trip somewhere?
That would be, honestly, I don't know why they haven't made a movie where that's the plot. Because, that would be, it would be kind of like if you've never seen True Lies, it's another Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, actually. But in that movie, he plays a spy, but he's lied to his wife and told her that he sells machine parts or something really boring, right? So she thinks he's just a salesman.
Mhm.
And then she gets caught up in this whole spy thing that he's involved in, and she finds out he's a spy. But that would be funny to have, like, oh yeah, honey, it's a business trip.
It takes his family on vacation, but he's got a contract. He's got to fill at
Exactly.
the same time. Yeah.
Maybe one of the family members befriends the mark, and I don't know. I think there's a script in that. There is. I mean, Pierce Brosnan did play a hitman in The Matador, which was not quite the same plot, but he plays like a hitman having a midlife crisis, and he meets up with Greg Kinnear, who is on travel for business, and they become friends, but he is a family man and kind of like straight-laced, and it's a very dark comedy, but not quite the same plot. That would be quite funny. So yeah, he's talking about vacation. She sees the police car. She's tempted to yell for help, but he jams the gun against her stomach.
Okay.
And tells her not to think about it.
My first question for this scene is that situation right there. Silver is driving with his right hand. So he's holding the gun on Laura with his left hand. And yet he manages to not twist around enough that he is out of this weird position while driving the car and still able to stick the gun into Laura's side. No, it doesn't work physically.
Not only that, but he jams it into her stomach and basically like threatens to shoot her if she calls for help. But I don't know about you, but if Laura would probably call his bluff here, because if he shoots her, the cops are going to notice that.
Right. And the other thing is, if you look carefully at this scene, when he reaches over with his left hand, which is not his strong hand, by the way, we know that he's right-handed.
Yeah.
So he's reaching over with his left hand. His arm and hand are above hers.
Yeah.
So all she would have to do is, with the cops sitting there, is just real quick bang her hand up into his.
Yeah.
And even if he fired the gun by reflex, simply because of the natural impulse of the hand, when you're getting hit, to just kind of squeeze and contract, and that accidentally fires around, Laura's got a chance at least. Yeah,
exactly. And like I said, with cops right there, I would think that a hitman would not really actually do it, because you're going to get caught. Even if she's dead, they're going to see it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So Laura, I guess the fear of the situation, regardless of the logistics, would take over. She says nothing.
Granted.
Cop car drives away, and the hitman goes back to his conversation. It's one of the nice things about the job, the travel,
Sure. I mean,
I guess there's an upside to everything, right?
That's right.
He goes on to say you can't let your emotions interfere, and it's like this is almost like a therapy session for him, right?
Yeah.
It's like a doctor that way, adding that if a doctor let it get to him every time he lost a patient, he would be a basket case. But doctors, as far as I'm aware, aren't sociopaths, although, you might have one or two, but I'm guessing a normal, well-adjusted human being doesn't pick career path on their career day test, or hitman on their career day test.
Yeah, that's right.
Just a theory. So yeah, he continues to drive, saying that the key is just to look at it as a job with some risks. Yeah. Laura notices a truck with metal bars sticking out the back, and she steps on his foot, and the car drives.
Okay. We have another logistics problem.
Yeah, we do.
Because the early to mid 80s Ford Thunderbirds, which is what this is, have a very large center console, kind of like a lot of modern cars do, which would make it very difficult for the person in the passenger seat to get their leg up and over that in the first place. Never mind that they would have to have a leg that is about as long as an orangutan's, upper arms, in order to get it over that hump and then down far enough onto the floorboard to hit that gas pedal. I mean, it's no way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things here that don't work because if have you seen Final Destination 2? Probably not, but I'm going to ask just.
I'm not sure if I've seen Final Destination
Okay.
1.
So it's Final Destination is a horror franchise that is really silly.
Okay.
We really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. The first
Campy.
the first film basically revolves around these teenagers who are going on a class trip. They're getting on a plane. They get on the plane, and then the main character has this vision of all of them dying in a crash. And he flips out, loses his mind, and a few of them get off. And then the plane does, in fact, crash and burns, like it explodes. And they find out throughout the course of the plot that, the six that survived, they start to be killed in really weird and bizarre and creative ways, like accidents. And you find out as the film goes on that they cheated death, and now death is coming for them. So it's not actually a villain or somebody trying to kill them. It's literally like they shouldn't have gotten off that plane. They were supposed to have died. So now they don't know where or when, but something's going to happen, and it's going to kill them, right? And it's going to kill them in the order that they should have died on the plane. So that's the first movie. The sequels pretty much follow that same pattern, right?
Okay.
In the second film, there's a bunch of the characters are driving along on the road, and there's a truck in front of them, and it's got a bunch of logs sticking out the back. And they end up driving right into the truck, and the logs come in and decapitate one of the characters. That's how death finds that particular character. Okay. So anytime I see this setup, I'm like, oh crap, he's about to lose his head. Like this Final Destination 2, it's going to get him. He somehow comes out of that unscathed. Like,
yeah.
Wouldn't it have gone through the windshield at least or something?
Yeah, it would have gone through the windshield. Now, the glass would have... This would have been on a laminated windshield, so there's 2 layers of glass connected with an adhesive in the center. And it would punch through and punch this big hole, and then from this hole in the center, where the steel beam came through, it would be shattered and spiderwebbed and broken into little tiny pieces. But yeah, it would be a mess.
Yeah.
So even if he didn't get hit by the steel beam, it would be messy.
Yeah. My notes, in my notes, my exact words were, she steps on his foot and the car drives into the truck, the bar going through the windshield, and in brackets, and into the man's head, ? In a full Final Destination moment. So, yeah. She jumps out of the car and makes a run for it. In the parking garage, and that was a bit of a risk because any car accident you force yourself to get into could turn badly. Like, she could have gotten trapped in that car just as easily.
Yeah.
So, but she doesn't, so she escapes. In the parking garage, Steele's building, he pulls up in the Auburn, and when he gets up to his floor, Clarissa's hiding there, and she's soaked. Or maybe she's already in the parking garage. I might have gotten that part wrong. But either way, he asks what she's doing there, and it's obvious that something has happened. Inside the apartment, you see Steele bringing her tea. He's wearing the ugliest blue old man sweater ever invented. I don't know what Wardrobe was. Wardrobe was asleep at the wheel in this episode because what is that sweater? Why is it on him? I don't.
It's not a very good looking sweater. Yeah, that's for sure.
No, and it's not him. It looks like it should be on somebody much, much older than him. Like, it's not. Anyway, okay, so he's wearing this blue old man sweater, bringing her tea, and she tells him that she knows it's silly, but she was scared and she didn't know where else to go. He tells her not to feel ashamed, and then she steps out of his bedroom in nothing but a pajama top.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm not saying anything.
He tells her that he would have done the same, but he's obviously
in the pajama top.
Yeah, well, you can see on the look of his on his face that he's trying to be a gentleman, but obviously unsettled by her lack of pants. So, and that's at least indicative of the fact that they're now in the thaw, because pre-thaw Steele would have been like, hey, you don't have pants on. Like Gwen dropping the soap. But no, I don't actually think he would have done that. I don't think he would have taken advantage of somebody who was in danger, but still.
No.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. Blonde chick in the Maltese Steele episode. The one that was turned out to be one of the villains.
Hmm.
She was all, oh, I'm all distraught about the car crash.
Yeah, but that's
Anyway.
a different situation. That was obviously an insincere, oh, no, 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 no. That was really
Fair
more
enough.
of an offer.
Yeah.
You know, with Clarissa, it's okay, this is what I expect this is what I expect you to do, what I expect you to want. So, all right,
So,
let's.
yeah, I'll ask that question in a minute because I had some thoughts on this too, right? Because she takes the tea, she thanks him. He says it's been a long evening. They could both do with a good night's sleep, and offers to get her a blanket or to get a blanket for the couch. Tells her that she can use his bed. He goes into the bedroom, grabs a blanket and pillow out of the closet. I feel like every house, by the way, has that blanket that he grabbed. Right? Like, I'm serious. I don't know. Whoever made that blanket, whatever company is responsible for that blanket with the satin, like on the sides or whatever,
Mhm.
they made a fortune because I think every house in that time period had that blanket.
I remember those.
Yeah,
In fact, I remember-
blanket.
I remember ours, the satin trim had come loose at one end,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of dangling.
Starts to fray. Yeah, it did that. But yeah, we had that blanket too. It was a different color, but we had that blanket.
I don't remember what color ours was, but
Yeah. So I think the one he grabs is blue.
blue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one we had was pink. But either way, she's on the bed watching him, and says in slight surprise that she usually has trouble keeping men out of the bedroom. So, what's her motivation here? Like, because
She's confused. She expected him to do something. I mean, after all, he's protecting her. He's offering her a place to stay. Tit for tat. Sorry. Quid pro quo. Let's go with that one. So he's doing something good for her. She owes him. That's what she expected, and that's not what's happening. And it's like, what am I? Am I ugly? What?
I don't think she's offended. I don't think she's offended. Actually, I think she's sort of she's
just
surprised.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's offended, and I'm glad you interpreted it that way because I wasn't sure what it meant for her character. Because to me, like, she doesn't seem, up until this point, she didn't seem like the kind of person that would like, unless she's in a relationship, do anything for free that she could otherwise charge for. But also, it felt like it kind of demeans her character a little bit that she hits on him. But you put it that way, that he's protecting her, and so she just assumes he's going to expect payment.
And she's
payment.
surprised when there's no bill.
Yeah, that actually treats her better than my question about it, because it felt, and I didn't think it rang true. That's why I was like, what is going on here? Because it didn't feel like she would be like, oh, you're a man, I'm going to hit on you because I'm a sex worker. Haha, there's the hit, there's the joke. That didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes more sense that she maybe just assumed, because that's probably how most men
goes.
treat her. I'm assuming she's not performing that service for Bernard, but you never know. I mean, he is doing a service for her, so you know.
I mean, we don't know what that relationship is other than the professional relationship that
I didn't get the impression that it was anything but professional, which is why I guess this kind of surprised me. So, but yeah, she does. She seems surprised, not offended.
Yeah.
And Steele admits it's tempting because, let's face it, she is an attractive woman. Like,
could use a few pounds, but yeah.
She's got a very pretty face. There's nothing unappealing about compared to some of the women that Steele's been with, like, you know.
Nadine.
Yeah, or Miss Taplinger, and right. So he admits that it's tempting, but he has his sights set on other shores. She tells him she understands, and then he kind of like, you can't say I'm not going to ask this question and then ask the question. That's
right.
Asking the question, right? But he says,
He doesn't really, I mean, it's not really quite that though, because I think in a sense, what he's telling her is that he's not, it seems like he is asking the question, but I think what he's doing is he's really saying, I'm not going to ask you that question. Don't worry about expecting it. Don't worry about having to explain it to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to probe into the whys and wherefores.
He's not going to probe her relentlessly.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, you walked right into that.
I did.
No, you're right. And I think that this is kind of indicative of his character in his better moments, right? He has his moments that are not great. We've seen them earlier in this episode when he didn't give Laura a phone call or something. But this moment where he's got this woman in front of him, and I think there's probably a part of him that would bristle at the concept of being with somebody that he knows doesn't want to be there for the right reasons. Like, even if it wasn't, I'm going to pay you, if she's offering to sleep with him just because he's helped her, I don't think he would do it because that wouldn't feel right to him. I think that he's never had any trouble finding willing partners. So I don't think he'd be, resorting to unwilling ones, or at least ones that would not otherwise be offering.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. Saying like, don't worry about it. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to. It's almost like he's basically giving. Not that he has to say, I'm going to respect you for just being a human, because everybody should. He's sort of indicating that to her, because she probably encounters people that find out what her job is and treat her like crap. So,
well, I think he recognizes that she has come to expect certain things and certain behaviors from other people. And they're the kind of things where she probably isn't. They're not things that she necessarily wants to have to deal with.
Yeah.
But she does, because that's what happens with other people. And I think this is just him, again, saying that, hey, I'm not going to go there. And I'm not going to put you in that position of having to deal with something that, one, isn't my business, and two, is probably not something you really want to get into anyway. So,
and this is kind of what I mean by how the episode treats her with respect in a way that a lot of shows or movies didn't at the time, because if they were going with the hooker with a heart of gold plot line, she would have some sort of sob story that forced her into this line of work. And I really want to get out of it and do something, blah, 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 blah. But instead, she offers no explanations and no apologies for her line of work, right? Which is pretty, when you think about it, pretty progressive for 1985, because he says, I'm not going to ask you what's a nice girl like you doing in a profession like this. And she says, that's a relief, right? And he leaves the room.
But he does take a peek back in.
He does. I mean, he's a man, right? Like, come on.
Oh, that's so sexist.
It's true. It's true. Hey, there was an episode of Lois and Clark where Lois was getting changed in the other room, and even Clark decided to. He didn't go through with it, but he was tempted. So that's all I'm saying. If Superman can be tempted, yeah. So he leaves the room and he takes off the grandpa sweater just as the buzzer goes. Walks over and opens the door to find a very angry Laura. And honestly, not only has he lied to her, but she was almost killed. Because he did not bring her into the loop.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that was certainly a factor, but she kind of walked into it. I mean, when Silver showed up and she, when he said Clarissa, she could have said, no, Clarissa's not here. I'm Laura Holt. What can I do for you? So, I mean, she kind of walked into it herself.
Yeah, but I get
with some help. Okay,
we both sort of assumed that he wouldn't have believed her.
Well, right, but if she's going to be honest about it, she didn't even try.
Yeah, No, I know.
So,
I know. But she storms in, telling him that she's sure that there's a perfectly good explanation as to why she was taken from this apartment at gunpoint by a man who does that sort of thing for a living, who mistook her for Bernard's Latin tutor, Clarissa, who isn't really a Latin tutor at all, unless she moonlights as a... And she stopped short as Clarissa exits Steele's bedroom, and she gives her a once-over, taking in her state of undress.
Yes.
And and forgivingly jumping to conclusions, because let's face it, this is a logical conclusion to make at this point for Laura.
Yeah, but I mean, when Steele accuses her of blowing it out of proportion, and she blows back up at him and goes through all, the litany of things. How about getting some facts first? I mean, you're supposed to be a detective. Act like one.
She was nearly killed. I think at this point, her brain is on like adrenaline and rage, and those are the only two things that are fueling her at this point.
Okay.
I can't really blame her, right? Like if this were a situation where she came over and she hadn't been taken at gunpoint and nearly killed, and Clarissa walked out in that t-shirt and nothing else, I think she'd still be mad, but I think she'd be a little bit more, you care to explain to me what this is all about? Like, no. And here she's pissed.
Okay. All right.
And then him telling her not to blow it out of proportion.
Yeah, that probably wasn't a good move on his part. I'll grant you that.
That's the calm down scenario all over again.
In the history of calm down has never caused anybody to calm down.
Worked. It has never, ever worked. And in this case, it definitely doesn't work because it only makes her angrier. She tells him she came here to find out what was going on behind her back and only barely escaped with her life. She then says she comes in here only to find this gymnast here coming out of his bedroom in his PJs and asks, how can I possibly blow this out of proportion? Yeah. That's fair. I don't know. That's fair to me. And he thankfully doesn't try to bullcrap her here. You're entitled to an explanation. You're going to get it.
I don't know, but usually when he uses that line, you gotta be suspicious because his explanation may not be a totally accurate portrayal either. So
he takes a deep breath, says it all started with Bernard. I think it started when he acted like a moron and didn't tell her, but whatever.
Well, the entire entirety of the situation began with Bernard.
Yeah. And then we switch over. We see Bernard in Mildred's kitchen deep in thought. Mm-hmm. Mildred comes out. She sees him and asks if he had trouble sleeping. Tells her he has a lot on his mind. She emphasizes, saying that she knows what that's like, adding that you're in too deep. You don't have so much as a straw to hang on to. Bernard wonders if she's trying to tell him something, and frankly, so do I. Is Mildred okay? Like, you all right there, Mildred? Everything okay?
Well, I think she realizes that he is dealing with something. She doesn't know what it is,
right?
But he's dealing with something that's really got him upset and bothered.
Yeah, that's fair.
So she's not wanting to pry. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. But I don't want to look like I'm going to pry. I just want to give you some comfort and advice. But I want to know what's going on.
Yeah. She assures him whatever it is, it could be worse. I don't know that that's always the right advice to give because sometimes things are pretty bad,
Yeah. And and the thing is, even if it's true, even if things could be worse, to the person in that situation, it doesn't feel like it.
No, I hate, to be honest, I hate that advice. I hate the advice that when you're upset about something and somebody says to you like, well, other people have it worse. And it basically just kind of like, I don't think that's what Mildred's doing here at all, but it does feel like it's invalidating.
Yeah, it's dismissive.
Yeah.
Oh, your problems aren't that bad. You're just making a big deal out of it. Yeah, you're just looking for sympathy.
There's people that are, that have far more bigger problems than you. And yes, that's 100% true. There's always somebody that has it worse.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have a right to feel the way you feel, and that's not, Again, I don't think Mildred's
Well,
doing that.
you may not have the right to feel the way you feel, but that doesn't invalidate the fact that you feel that.
True. Yeah.
Your the way you're feeling may be based on incorrect evidence or incorrect facts. It may be based on self-pity or whatever issue it is that's causing you to feel that way. So it may not be legitimate, but you're still feeling it.
Yeah.
So
either way, like it's So but I don't think she's trying to do that. I think she's trying to connect with him, and she tells him, look at her, right? She says she says to him, "You never really did know your Uncle Walter." I thought her husband had a different name. I thought she mentioned it in an earlier episode, and I didn't think it was Walter. I don't know why. And if anybody knows, like either put it in the comments on the Facebook feed or email us or something, but I thought it was a different name, and I'm blanking on what it was, but I thought she had mentioned his name and somewhere early in season 2, and Walter was not the name that pinged for me, but I couldn't remember what she said his name actually was.
I don't remember.
Anyway.
Walter sounds right, though.
I don't know. I thought it was something else.
I mean, she's the kind of woman who would be married to a Walter.
Yeah, but I thought I don't know. I could be wrong, and I could just be making this up, or I could be like assuming it's a fanfic name that somebody, you know what I mean? So if I'm wrong, then I'm probably wrong. But if I'm not, tell me what his name was. Yeah. So she tells him that he was lucky, and that she wished she could say the same. Oof, he sounds like a real prize. And then she said she made her bed and had to lie in it for 9 years. Ouch. And I mean, this is one of those you can really tell what time period this is kind of statements, because it was a lot harder for a woman to get divorced prior to things like no-fault divorce and allowing women to get their own credit cards and things like that than it is now, where you want to leave, you can, I mean, putting aside situations of domestic abuse, even just a bad marriage, it would have been harder to get out of when you had a time period where you needed to have a man to get a credit card or stuff like that. So it's that line that you kind of think, your 2025 mind goes, what do you mean you had to lie in it for 9 years? No, you didn't. You could have left. But then when you look at how old Mildred is and you wind the clock back, this would have been, she's 20
60s?
years. Yeah, right? So like
maybe 50s?
The likelihood of her being able to just walk away is not as likely as it would be now. So it's an interesting way to put it. She admits she was never that close to her sister, but tells Bernard that he is her silver lining. And this is obviously why Mildred never had kids. Like, she obviously, whatever happened, like maybe they couldn't. Maybe she and Bernard.
Well, she says I couldn't.
Maybe
have
kids. Oh, okay. I hadn't gotten to that part in my notes, but and I wonder if that's true, like in the sense that maybe it wasn't her, but if she hasn't remarried and tried, then she wouldn't know either way, right? So, but yeah, Bernard's her silver lining. He is surprised, and she says they couldn't have kids, right? So it could be one or the other. If she had remarried, maybe she could have, but she didn't, and that then her sister had him, and she admits she was a bit jealous, but watching him grow from a kid to an upstanding young man has made her as proud as if he was her own. Bernard, this is one of those moments where there's that look on his face, like she's saying something to him that in any other situation he would love to hear, but here it's just making him feel worse, right? Because
really.
This is gonna be rough, because he's done this thing and he's potentially lost her money and he's feeling so guilty about it, and she's trying to comfort him, but she's making him
got no
making
clue.
it worse. Yeah, it's just poor guy. And because she's got so much pride and so much love for him, right? And it's just like, oof. So she offers him a bite of her sandwich, tells him not to stay up. Yeah.
Can I say, perhaps this shows a lack of sophistication and style, but based on what we see of her house, I would rather live in her house than Steele's apartment. I'm just saying.
I agree. No, I agree. Steele's apartment has always felt cold to me in both the design and the way there's almost nothing personal in that apartment except the movie posters.
Well, I mean, even just discounting that, just the cold sterility of the modern design of apartments or buildings in general. Whereas Mildred's house, it's old-fashioned design, something you would have seen from the 40s or the 50s.
Yeah.
Stucco or plaster walls, those curved archways. It's to me, it says homey.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Well, if you think about it, Steele's apartment is very much a reflection of the fact that he doesn't have an identity, because the apartment, aside from those movie posters up on the wall, lacks any identity. It could be any generic apartment, right? Like there's no...
It could be the offices of the Greycoat Corporation.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you've got the grayish walls and the couch, which is... It's all very nice and very classy and very stylish and very well put together, but it's,
no emotion, no heart, no. Yeah.
Yeah. And Laura's loft, even though Laura's loft is also technically an apartment, Laura's loft is her. Like her personality is all over that loft, right? It's exactly the kind of place that you would picture Laura in as a modern woman in the 80s, where she's kind of like this cool, quirky building with these cool, quirky people. And yeah, you're right. I wouldn't really want to live in Steele's apartment, but it definitely is meant to reflect who he is. And so is Mildred's place, right? Her house definitely tells us who Mildred is. So yeah, no, I think you're right. It's nice. It's cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go back to Steele's cold apartment as he is desperately trying to explain his side of things. He says that he was already made an accessory after the fact, and he saw no reason to make her one as well. Sounds logical, but after everything that's happened, like if he hadn't lied to her so many times before that, you could maybe be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But
well, and that's the problem, is that it may be absolutely 100% valid in this case.
Yeah.
But he's cried wolf so many times, or failed to cry wolf so many times,
right?
that it gets hard to believe. Oh yeah, I lied to you last time, but this time I'm telling you the truth. Well, how do I know that? Because I'm telling you the truth. Well, that's what you said last time when you were lying to me.
Yeah. Clarissa insists it's not Bernard's fault. And Laura says whether it is or isn't, there's a professional killer out there who's willing to kill again to get his package back. Clarissa wonders why he would go to so much trouble to get Harold back when he knew he was dead. And Steele muses that it's not good enough to have killed him. He needed it to be known that he was dead. Laura adds that based on that, it's safe to assume that he was killed to stop the takeover and that Delanian's death was a means to an end. Steele realizes he's going to keep trying until they make the announcement. So, Clarissa, does that mean you're still after me? He's still after me? Laura says they can't sit around waiting for the axe to fall. There has to be some way to flush the killer out. She glances at Steele and smiles her, let's make him bait smile. And I mean, this is where he should know better not to piss her off, because the minute he does, she's just going to make him bait.
That's right.
So yeah, he sits up and says he doesn't like the way she's looking at him. Good instincts. Good instincts. Back in the office, Laura holds a photo of Delanium next to Steele wearing a silver-haired wig and the worst mustache ever.
Well, you totally blew past the wig straight to the mustache. That wig is horrible. I mean, it looks like a half worn out Brillo pad.
Yeah, it's bad. It is bad. The whole thing is bad because, to me, it doesn't matter. You could put as many wigs as you like, but without proper makeup that's going to actually make him look older, he looks like a young guy in a gray-haired wig and a mustache. Like, you're not going to convince me that as Kay Callan put it, puppy of a man is anywhere beyond 30. Like he's grumbling about how ridiculous the plan is, but Laura asks him to stand still so she can fix the mustache. He says nobody will believe he's Delanian, but she thinks they can convince the hitman that he is alive. Okay. Only if he sees him from really far away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steele points out that if they do, a professional hitman will be pointing a loaded .38 at him. She admits every plan has a flaw.
Oh, is that what you call it? A flaw?
Ouch. Actually, I call it revenge, but that's what she's calling it. So, she then grabs a few things, including the tape recorder, telling him that these are a few things Delanian left at Clarissa's, and they may come in handy. Steele presses play on the tape recorder, and Delanian's voice can be heard addressing his imaginary audience. So this is obviously a speech that he meant for the takeover. Steele asks what she will be doing. Well, he's playing sitting duck for a torpedo, which I like that. She says baiting the waters, adding that whoever is trying to stop the takeover either works for Delanian or Milgram Industries. While he is checking in, she plans to spread the good news that he's alive and well. So, translation, she's going to make things a whole lot worse for him.
Yeah, that target on your back, that's not big enough. Can we make it a little bit bigger?
We're just going to increase the size until
That's
you are
right. We're going to put neon lights on it, flashing with strobes and spotlights up into the sky saying, "He's here, he's here, he's here."
You can shoot him here, yeah. Inside the building of Delanian Engineering, the secretary is being bombarded with demands to speak to Mr. Delanian. Laura tells him that he won't be available today. The secretary asks who she is, and she pulls out her license, giving her name and saying that he hired her to protect him until he makes an important announcement later today. And then she tells them that if they need to reach him, he can be found at the Hotel Belvedere. It's a good thing this is a ruse, or she would be the worst bodyguard ever.
Well... The other thing is somebody should have thought about this, Myrtle and Morty, because she was hired to protect him, but now she's announcing to the world where he's at. Sounds a little bit odd.
Most incompetent bodyguard ever. That's it is odd because who would say, I've been hired to protect this man. By the way, if anyone needs him, he's in this hotel.
That's right. Did everything but give the room number.
If anyone needs to kill him, this is where he is. But yeah. Yeah. So she leaves and she's being watched, as you said, by Morty and Myrtle. He panics and they go into another room freaking out that Delanian isn't dead. She says there's only one explanation and that he must have bought off Silver. She tells him that if they want something done, they got to do it themselves. Morty, poor Morty. Poor Morty. He's appalled by this. He points out they don't even have a gun. However, Myrtle is not to be deterred. And she tells him they buy a gun from a shady pawn shop that makes holes, and then they kill Delanian themselves. I would be wondering at this point, if I were Morty, who am I married to?
Well, yeah.
She seems scary.
There is that. Also, Myrtle doesn't know squat. Wouldn't happen.
No, I'm not saying it would. I'm just saying if I'm Morty, I'm like, okay, this is how she handles.
Yeah.
Cool.
Morty should definitely be looking for the exit.
Yeah.
But, Myrtle doesn't know squat because, first of all, it wouldn't happen that way. In 1993, the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act amended the Gun Control Act of 1968, so there were already laws in place. The Brady Act mandated federal background checks on firearm purchasers. It imposed a 5-day waiting period on purchases until the NICS, National Instant Criminal Background Check System, could be implemented, which was ultimately done in 1998. So, first of all, if they tried to buy something from any kind of a even marginally reputable dealer, they would have to have a 5-day waiting period. But even if they could find a shady pawn shop to sell them a gun and let them take it that day, pawn shops are highly regulated and highly scrutinized and monitored by law enforcement. And infractions can get a pawn shop shut down in a heartbeat. And I mean, it's one of those things where, can you imagine going out and asking around, do you know a shady pawn shop where I could buy a gun illegally and take it with me this day? It's like, hello, just even asking the question is insane.
To be fair, there are a few pawn shops in the city that I live in. Some of them are in less wonderful parts of the city than others and have that look about them that just looks iffy. I'm not saying they would sell illegal firearms or anything, but I am saying, like, you don't need to ask around if there's a shady shop on, you go to the right part of town, you're going to find something. But, and here's where I say, I think everything you just said is untrue, because Hollywood has shown me that you can just walk into a pawn shop and buy a gun and take it right there and then just go kill a bunch of people. That's what I've seen in movies. So clearly that's true, right?
Of course. And Hollywood would never lie.
No, Hollywood would never lie.
Just like if you see it on the internet, it's got to be true.
It's got to be true. So yeah, clearly, clearly that's all wrong. Everything you just said is all wrong. And Myrtle is correct. They could just wander into a pawn shop and just, yeah.
That's right.
That's what the Terminator did, didn't he?
I don't know. I never saw him. So anyway.
It's in one of the Terminator movies. Anyway. But I think in the sense that Myrtle and Morty are clearly two people that are way out of their depth.
Oh, yeah.
Myrtle obviously had, in her mind, that makes perfect sense. We'll just find a shady pawn shop. We'll buy something that makes holes, and then we'll go and kill Delaney, and easy peasy.
Yeah. And well, from the standpoint of if we don't say it's a gun, we just say it's a cordless hole puncher. Yeah, that could work.
And like I said, poor Morty is watching her like, what happened? Who did I marry?
Let's admit it that Morty is whipped.
Oh yeah, big time. He's worse than Clint, from Springtime. Yeah, he's. So we switch over to the hotel. We see Clarissa approach the clerk. She tells him that she called earlier about a suite, giving the name Delanian. He connects the dots, looks over at Steele, somehow mistaking him for Mr. Delanian.
Well, if he's never seen Mr. Delanian.
Yeah, yes, but still. Well, he's far enough away, I guess, maybe. Whatever. Hands her a key and tells her that they might find this more to his liking. She thanks him and leaves. Inside a very nice apartment building, we see Jill, one of Clarissa's friends, getting out 2 glasses of wine. The doorbell rings. She answers it. It's Silver. She has been expecting him, invites him in, asks what happened to his eye. So that's obviously his only injury from the car accident.
And I would say that Jill did not do a background check on Mr.
She did
Silver.
Not. But if he called and said that she was recommended by one of the other girls,
well,
like they look out for each other. So that might be enough to take off some of the warning bells.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm not saying she still should have looked into him, but
because she didn't get the reference directly from Clarissa.
No.
It's just Mr. Silver pulling the name out of thin air.
Yeah.
Not literally, but
that's when you call Clarissa and say, "Hey, this guy Silver, is he legit?" Yeah,
exactly. And she obviously didn't do that. So
no. She asked what happened to his eye, and then she makes a joke about things they can do to get rid of the swelling. And maybe I'm overly innocent, but
that's not the swelling she had in mind.
Okay. I was going to say, I wasn't aware of any therapeutic techniques that she could offer that would...
No.
Okay. All right, then. Yeah, so she asks how he knew Clarissa, and he tells her a friend recommended her. He adds that he was hoping the 3 of them could have a party. She laughs and says that sounds wicked. In Mr. Delanian's suite, Clarissa, Bernard, and Steele are there. She tells him that she arranged to have Mr. Delanian paged every hour. Poor Steele. She's just making it so much worse. He's nervous. He drinks his tea and asks and says if Miss Holt's plan works, then he should be dead by lunchtime.
Hey, you got to look at the bright side.
Yeah, right? Beeper goes off and Steele says, oh, not another emergency. She tells him that she's going to take care of it, and Steele tells Bernard to cheer up, reminding him that he isn't the one wearing the mustache. Clarissa calls the number and asks Jill what's up. She invites them to the party, and Clarissa tells her she can't, adding that she's going to be at the Belvedere until noon. Clarissa!
Well, hey, I mean, Laura's doing it. Why not? It's not like it's a secret anymore.
True. She apologizes and hangs up. On the other end, Silver has all the information he needs. He suggests to Jill that she get the bubble bath started and he'll get more champagne. She goes into the other room to do that, and he leaves. This has got to be a bit of a blow to the ego right here.
Yeah.
She comes back out, he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, ouch.
Is it something I said?
Yeah, right? Back at the hotel, we see Morty and Myrtle forcing their way through the crowd onto the elevator. He's panicking, this poor guy. Can't go through with it. She calls him a spineless coward, asking that, have you forgotten that Delaney plans to sell the company that they created, and adds that he will bargain away their pensions and they will have to start at ground level after 25 years. To be fair, you can understand why they're so desperate. Not why you'd want to kill a man, but like
why they're upset about the situation. But I mean, clearly this is an abuse situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like poor Morty. Like you just feel so bad for this poor guy because she's got him backed into he can't see which way he's looking right now.
Well, I kind of get the feeling that at some level she controls him.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
He's afraid of her, and it's a typical abuse situation where you're afraid to leave the abuser.
Which they're playing this for laughs because it's the 80s and it's comedy and it's so funny.
Well, I don't know if they're for some laughs, but they're not making the abuse situation.
No, she's clearly
a huge detail. They're not bringing out front and center, but it's there.
No.
And so they're not making that necessarily for comedy, but certainly.
Well, it's pretty obvious. She's calling him a spineless coward, right? Yeah. She insists that Delaney has it coming and adds that if he doesn't have the guts, she will, right? Like that's you know what the scene that makes me think of? Macbeth. I know it's weird, but have you ever read the play or seen any of the terrible incarnations of it?
No.
It's Shakespeare's obviously one of his plays, and the plot of the play is that there's a general, Macbeth, who's one of the king's cousins, and they're fighting a war at the beginning of the play, and he's just won a big battle, and he walks by these witches who basically predict that he will become king. They make 3 predictions, actually, but the main one is that he'll become king. And he goes home and he tells his wife, and he's like, hey, guess what? I'm going to be king. These ladies said so, and it's totally true. And the wife is like, cool, we have to kill him. And Macbeth's like, what now? We're doing what now? And she's like, no, we're going to kill him. Like, that's the only way you're going to get to be king because, we can't just wait for him to die. You need to kill him. And Macbeth does not want to do that, and he's really, really not into that idea, but she pushes and pushes and pushes and calls him all sorts of things, including a coward and spineless and pretty much all of these things Myrtle has said until he finally he's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And then she ends up having to like finish it off, or I can't remember what happens. It ends up driving her insane, and he ends up becoming a serial killer. Like that's actually how it kind of like, because once one kill is under his belt, he kind of just becomes more and more addicted to the power and can't stop. But like just this scene in the elevator with her, if you're not going to do it, I will. And then him saying, okay, I'll do it. That just made me think of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth.
Yeah.
So they get off the elevator, go over to the door. Morty starts to take out the gun again, but she put it back, right? And then they lean in to listen. And meanwhile, the elevator door opens and this crowd of people that they shove past to get on the elevator step off. They push Morty and Myrtle out of the way, and someone hands the woman in front a microphone. She knocks on the door and tells her that the news agent, she's from the news agency, adding that she's there for the exclusive he promised on the rumored takeover. So Morty and Myrtle are kind of, they lost their moment. They lost their window because now now there's a crowd. Steele is annoyed, commenting on how Laura baited the waters a little too well. But this one wasn't her fault. Bernard admits he called the press. Clarissa asks why, and he says the whole thing is his fault, and he just wants to come clean and find a way to pay everyone back. You can understand why he would want that, but it's not going to help with the hitman situation. So,
yeah,
that's not going
to. There's definitely a time and a place for admitting the truth here.
Yeah,
but maybe when somebody's out trying to kill everybody that's in their way, that's probably not.
Yeah.
Well, that might be a good time to do it, but not necessarily in this way.
No. I guess maybe he was envisioning holding a press conference where they basically say, "Yeah, he's alive," but I don't know. I guess Delaney, and unless he knows the contract's off, would still try to take him out.
Yeah.
Not Delaney,
if
sorry,
he wanted
Silver.
to announce that Delaney is actually dead, and that the whole thing is falling apart. But there's still the problem of everybody now knowing who the hitman is. And so that's a problem for the hitman.
Yeah, they can't have witnesses.
And then it's going to lead back to Morty and Myrtle. So that's a problem. So, there's going to be more dead bodies.
Yeah.
They're going to be stacking up like cordwood.
Like cordwood. Yeah. The woman continues to knock, reminding Mr. Delaney that she knows they're in there and that he called them. Clarissa tells him it wasn't his fault, that Harold was murdered, and Steele adds that they can't turn back now as the press would nail their hides, and confessing isn't necessarily going to convince the killer. Which is true. Like, the killer could just assume that he's saying that to, put them off or whatever. Clarissa encourages him, saying, "In for a penny, in for a pound." Meanwhile, we see Laura in the lobby. She approaches the desk and asks what suite Harold Delaney is in, and the guy just tells her, which... I mean, I guess the press knows and everybody else knows, but you would think if somebody was that wealthy and important, they wouldn't just be like, "Yeah, he's up there. Go for it."
Yeah.
So we see Laura. She heads toward the elevator, but she's grabbed and yanked backwards, finding herself face to face once more with Silver. He gives her a sinister look and tells her that she left without saying goodbye, still calling her Clarissa. Back in the suite, Steele paces back and forth until he finally gets an idea. Pulling out the tape recorder, he tells Clarissa to stall and Bernard to call security and have the press removed. The woman is still calling out, saying that if they leave with nothing, it won't look good for his company. Clarissa opens the door a crack and tells him just a second. Steele finds the right spot on the tape recorder and plays it against the door, which this would not work. This would not work. This would not work.
Nope. But...
this is Mildred in the coffin.
Yeah.
All over again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your tape recorders...
it's not even that good, because at least Mildred in the coffin, she had a somewhat decent boombox. This is one of those little micro recorders that the speaker is so small it sounds really tinny. It's...
it would sound like a recording. First of all, you'd be able to tell that. And it wouldn't be loud enough to... like, you'd barely hear it on the other side of the door if you heard it. Like, it just it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of the plot, I feel like we're saying that a lot for this episode. It has to work. So, so he plays the tape recorder, and we see Morty and Myrtle look hopeful that he might really be dead after all until he plays Delaney's voice saying, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press." The reporter's confused by the "good afternoon," and she asks him if he's coming out. Steele finds another spot on the tape and plays the word "no" in response. This makes me think of Home Alone, when he's getting the pizza.
I don't remember it. I saw it, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's the same. It's like, in his case, it's a videotape of a mobster movie called Angels Without Wings or something, or Angels with Filthy Souls. It's a fake movie, but he orders pizza, and then, "Who is it?" "It's Little Nero's. I'm here with your pizza, sir." "Put it on the doorstep and get the hell out of here." "What about the money?" "What money?" "You have to pay for your pizza, sir." "Is that a fact? How much do I owe you?" And then eventually he tells him to, he's got 3 seconds to get off his property before he pumps his guts full of lead, and then there's all this gunfire, and the poor pizza guy runs for it because he's terrified. This is what it reminds me of. but not quite as funny. She asks what he has to say about the takeover rumors, and Steele has him reply with no comment. She's annoyed, saying that was a long wait for a no comment. She asks how he feels about Milgram Industries, and Steele plays the tape of Delaney and saying, "I hate them all." I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's taking over Milgram Industries, right?
No, it's the other way around. Milgram's taking over Delaney.
I thought he was taking over Milgram, and that's why Morty and
he's
Mildred
selling
were,
it to them.
Or Myrtle. Oh, either way. Yeah, so this confuses her even more.
And you could almost make an argument that his comment, right? That a comment like "I hate them all" would be appropriate if it's a hostile takeover, but it didn't sound like this was a hostile takeover. It sounded like it was a mutually agreed upon action. So that would probably have struck an odd chord with the reporters as well.
Well, he wasn't a young guy, so maybe it was a retirement thing, right? Sell the company.
Could be, yeah.
Retire,
but still,
right?
It's not like it was a hostile takeover where he was fighting tooth and nail to prevent it from happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reporter, even more confused, asks if she can quote him. Technically, she doesn't have to ask that. It's an interview.
Yeah.
You know, like it would only be a situation where you'd have to ask if you could quote it if you're speaking to somebody off the record.
Mm-hmm.
But this is on the record because he called the press, or at least that's what
supposedly happened. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't respond, so she asks him again, and Steele presses play once more, and Delanian's voice says, "That's all for now, just as security arrives." That must be so confusing for that reporter. He called us up there.
Not to worry. We'll just write the story we want. We'll make it all up. And hey, they can sue us later.
Yeah, right. The security men force the reporters, as well as Morty and Myrtle, onto the elevator. And just as they all leave, the door opens and Laura and Silver get off. He has the gun, and as they head up to the door, Silver says he doesn't know how Mr. Delaney can still be alive, but he soon won't be. And you sort of feel bad for Silver because he's clearly a professional who takes pride in his work.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, he did his job. He shot the guy. He's probably like having all sorts of like second thoughts. Is this the right career that I'm in? Should I have become a banker instead? You know what?
No, he's not having those second thoughts. He's having thoughts along the lines of something is not right here. I know what happened. He's dead. Yeah. What's going on?
So Laura rings a buzzer, but she does like a specific pattern of a ring. And Bernard says that he thinks it's Miss Holt, but the ring that she was supposed to give was supposed to be too long and one short. Steele wonders if she's trying to tell them something. On the other side of the door, Laura says to Silver, "Well, nobody's home." And he tells her, "Well, try it again." She does. Steele tells him to go to plan B, which is to stall. They walk away from the door. Silver picks the lock and forces Laura into the suite.
One-handed?
Yeah, I know.
I don't think so. No.
My daughter came home yesterday with a paperclip in her hand saying that her friend at school was teaching her how to pick locks. And all I could think was, did they all go to this, like, is this a class that gets taught? Because she had a paperclip, and she's like, yeah, he's telling me.
Well, I've seen some informational videos about it, and they don't necessarily get too specific because I think there's some legal liability issues.
Yeah, probably.
But they just talk about it in general terms. And if I remember correctly, you have to have two tools because of the way that the lock mechanisms operate. You have to have two tools to do kind of a push-pull thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one-handed, I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway.
Well, they always do use two hands, Steele and Laura. We always see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we just hand wave this. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing nobody there, they walk further into the room, past a small nook where Steele and Clarissa are standing with a table that obviously had room service on it at one point. He pushes the cart slowly towards Silver, who approaches the bedroom. Laura says, "Mr. Delanian?" And they hear him say, "No comment." Silver pushes open the door, lowers the gun to point at Bernard, who is standing there with the tape recorder in his hand. Just as Steele shoves the cart into him, the gun goes off. I don't know how that doesn't hit Bernard.
See, I've got in my notes here that frankly, Steele waited too long before hitting Silver with the food cart, because he waited until Silver had the door open. And as a consequence, as you said, he got the shot off, and in all reality would have hit Bernard. What should have happened is as soon as he started opening the door, Steele should have started going at him with the cart, because as soon as the door got open, Steele would be hitting him with the cart before Silver got the chance to get the shot off. And it's the same problem that I have with people in cars waiting to make a left turn, who they sit back behind the line, and then they wait until the cars coming from the other direction are completely past them before they start to go, which means that they missed an opportunity to go. It's like people who go out hunting. I don't know if you've ever gone hunting or not.
Never hunted. No.
I haven't done it, but I'm familiar enough with how these kinds of things work to know that if you're out hunting ducks or geese or whatever, and they're up above you and you point at your gun at them and shoot at them, guarantee you're going to miss them, because you're shooting at where they were,
not where they're going to be. Yeah,
exactly. And it's called deflection shooting. And that's the thing that's going on here is that by the time, if Steele had started right when Silver was opening the door, he would have hit him while he was still focused on the inside of the room as the door is opening, but before he got the shot off. So yeah, Steele just waited too long.
Well, I will admit that while I don't wait for there to be a perfect opening before I go into the left turn. Mm-hmm. But if I'm behind the line and there's a car that's already in the lane, like that's moved up, I will wait for that car to turn fully before I'll move in. I won't piggyback the next vehicle because...
Yeah, but you pull out into the intersection enough
absolutely.
that you've eliminated about 40% of the distance that you have to travel to make the turn. So you just saved yourself a whole amount of time, and you don't have to be one of those people that's, I can't go. There's a car coming 4 blocks away, and I'm such a poor driver that I couldn't get across the lane in all the time it's going to take them to go the 4 blocks.
That's what they teach you in driver's ed, to pull into the intersection, to do an S maneuver and put yourself so you can see past whoever's in the turning lane opposite you.
I don't think they either they're not teaching driver's ed properly anymore, or there's a lot of people not taking driver's ed.
Oh, yeah, because don't even get me started. I have things I rage about. Anyway, not relevant, but when people turn left and then they turn into the outside lane, that drives me crazy. That's not what you're supposed to do. Yeah,
especially if you're coming from the other way, trying to make a right turn into that lane.
Yes.
And then they honk at you and flip you off like you're the one that didn't obey the traffic laws, you
Or
moron.
What kills me is when they turn left into the outside lane and then move into the inside lane. It's like, anyway.
Yeah.
So,
or the people that wait until they're about 25 yards before the exit off the highway, and they're in the far left-hand lane. But they want that exit,
so they just wait until they... This is a whole other podcast.
The Road Rage Podcast.
Sara and Eric's Road Rage Podcast. Join us. Watch us. Anyway. So Laura, somehow he doesn't hit Bernard. Silver pitches forward onto the bed. Laura grabs his gun and tells him that if it moves, he will join Delanian. If he moves. Steele grabs Silver and pulls him to his feet. And Silver... This is the best. You know that he cares about his job because he's like, I knew I got him. He doesn't care that he's caught or that he's going to jail. He's like, I totally knew I killed him. Thank you. At least that part I knew. And Laura points out that forensics will have no trouble matching the bullet to the gun. You mean the one she's holding and getting fingerprints all over that gun?
Yeah, that would be the one.
Cool. Okay. Just making sure.
Okay.
Steele adds that they just have to take him to the authorities and find out who hired him. Laura hands the gun to Bernard and they escort Silver out the door. As they exit the room, poor Morty is standing outside with his gun and he shoots. I feel so bad for Morty. Like, Morty does not want to be a killer. And now he is. And it's not even the guy that he was like.
Yeah.
Silver drops. Steele pursues him, followed by Laura. Morty and Myrtle run down the stairwell. Morty shoots again, but misses. Steele jumps and tackles Morty, and Laura's able to get the gun. Laura tells him that he can take off the mustache and says that he was beginning to think it suited him and asks if she agrees, wiggling his lips. She says, no comment. I don't know about you. Well, actually, I do know about you because I'm about to say I'm not a fan of mustache, and I'm guessing you aren't either. So, in terms of like your partner
not
having
really.
one, like there's a difference between like what you've got, right, and like the big full like handlebar.
Well, that's because I can't grow anything worthwhile. Yeah. So yeah, I'm one of those people that I just cannot grow facial hair of any kind of depth and thickness.
Yeah, he can't either. Like he gets to where like basically what you've got, and then it just stops. Like it won't get any longer. So yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm not a big fan of like full, huge beard mustaches and whatnot. But anyway, not really relevant. Back at the office, they come through the doors and Mildred.
Since when has anything in our podcast been relevant?
That's fair. That's fair. That should be another T-shirt. Since when is anything we say relevant? Yeah, they're back at the office. They come through the doors. Mildred is waiting. She asks, where have they all been? And Bernard tries to tell Mildred there's been a problem with the investment. It hasn't gone as planned. Mildred asks if that means they're going to lose everything, and Steele covers, saying the investment made a great deal of money. Laura adds that Bernard decided to donate it to the museum in her name. Okay, I have some questions here. First of all, how much money are we talking? Because if it was a significant amount of money that I just lost, I wouldn't care if you donated it. I would want to be notified that you took my money and donated it somewhere. And secondly, you would think that if they actually donated this money to a museum in her name, that her name would be somewhere in that museum. Because that's usually how that works, right? Like a generous donation from so-and-so.
And that's part of the, let's assume that Mildred is stupid because, I mean, she's a former IRS agent.
Right.
She would know how to look these things up, and she would be curious. She would want to know about the endowment, who's earning the awards. And I mean, it's something that she would be proud of.
Exactly.
And to just feed her this line that is totally bogus and expect her not to find out about it at some point, it's like,
yeah. And I mean, I get it. They're trying to protect Bernard. They don't want to, Bernard's trying to confess, but they don't want to disappoint Mildred, right? They want Mildred to see Bernard the way she sees him now. And honestly, I think that's kind of shortchanging Mildred like a lot. Because I think that if Bernard had been honest with her and said, listen, I screwed up and I lost the money and I'm really sorry, she would hug him and say, that's okay. We all make mistakes. Like, I think she'd be disappointed the money was gone, obviously, but like, I don't think that it would cause her to look at him any differently.
She's going to be more disappointed finding out that he lied to her.
Yeah, exactly.
Than she would be to find out that the investment tanked because of circumstances and that all their money was gone. Because even though he has some responsibility for it in that he put their money into it and it was his recommendation, I'll put that in some sarcasm
Insider
quotes
trading.
because I don't think there was a lot of recommending going on. I think it was just a lot of, I'm going to do this and not tell them, and then I'll surprise them at the end. But Bernard didn't kill Delanian.
No.
And so he really wasn't responsible for the ultimate situation on the stocks. And like you said, she'd be disappointed about the loss of the money, and it might hurt financially to the point where it makes her life a lot more difficult than it would have been otherwise. But I think she would have understood it to some degree because there are things that are out of his control.
I think,
but
like
the
you
lying
said,
part, no.
I think it would be more like less the lying and more that being hurt that he felt he couldn't come to her.
Yeah.
Right. Which I guess is the lying,
both.
but like you couldn't tell me what was wrong, and instead this is what happened. So yeah, I don't love the fact that they don't tell Mildred, but I get that they probably didn't have enough time. because like this is the end of the episode. We're heading into the freeze, but not the freeze, the can freeze, but like the freeze, the end of the episode.
Yeah, episode freeze. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a shame that they choose to lie to her because she's surprised, and Steele calls it the Mildred Krebs Endowment for the Study of Latin. Okay.
And when Mildred finds out that it's not a real thing,
right?
And she's going to start asking questions about Latin tutor. What's really going on with Clarissa?
Okay. That's a fan fiction. Somebody needs to write that. Go. Yeah. Mildred looks into her investment, figures out it's not what she thought. Yeah, that's a story. Yeah. She's thrilled, though. She throws her arms around him, calls him a sweetheart. Clarissa adds that Bernard is something special, and Mildred says, "Didn't I tell you?" Steele asks Laura if he can have a word, leads her off to the side, and he tells her he heard of an island where they've never heard of paperwork or Latin called Catalina. She says she likes the style and puts the mustache back on his face. And this is where it freezes. But clearly they never get to Catalina because something will happen. Something will,
absolutely.
'cause it always does.
That's right.
Yeah. But that's the end of the episode. Any major thoughts on this one?
No, I think we hit all the high points and low points.
I mean, despite the it works for the plot, so we're going to go with it. I do like this episode. It's fun. It's got some funny moments. I like Clarissa as a character, and I know that that's going to be a controversial thing to say because she's in one of the most disliked episodes of the series. But I don't know.
I'm not sure that is one of the most disliked episodes of the series. I think season 5 is one of the most disliked episodes of the series.
I know, but the circumstances that lead to season 5, and we'll obviously get there when we get there, but I just think that Clarissa as a character, I don't know, I would have liked to have seen more of her. I think she was fun. I think she had, for the short time she was there, they gave her some depth. They treated her with respect, which could have gone very differently. And you can sort of understand when she does come back for Bonds why she would do what Steele asked, like why she would try to help him out by, doing the whole marriage bit.
And I'm going to say, it's been a long time since I've watched Bonds of Steel, but I'm going to say I'm not sure I have as big an issue with that one as some other people might.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's a polarizing one, so it'll be fun when we get there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It will be interesting.
I do enjoy Clarissa, and I liked the sort of storyline involving Delanian and the whole takeover thing and them having to move the body. It was, there's some funny moments here. So overall, pretty decent watch. On the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, there are show notes, links to Amazon US and Amazon Canada. We've also got social media resources and links such as
the official Steele Watching Facebook page, the Twitter, the Instagram pages, the link to the always unofficial but always loved Steele Watchers fan group, and also links so that if you want to support the show financially with either a subscription on a monthly basis or a one-time donation, you can do that. And as a reminder, if you do, you will be invited to watch the live stream as we record these episodes and have your chance to throw out some comments as we're going along, which if you listened to the last episode,
we had comments.
We had comments and we did address them. So
I felt so important.
we like that kind of participation for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, I felt we'll be your best friend.
Talk about manipulation. But yes,
you
will be our special friend.
Okay, that just sounded creepy. We'll go with mine.
Anyway.
The next episode will be Diced Steel.
Yes.
Lots of fun with that one. All right.
I got nothing else.
Yeah, we'll see everybody later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Eric and Sara here. Just a quick announcement to let you know that, yes, we do appreciate everyone who listens, participates, and supports the podcast in whatever way you do. But we wanted to give an extra thank you to those who are so graciously giving to be monthly financial supporters.
We are making live streams of our recording sessions available to anyone who is a monthly financial supporter. So not only can you watch us live as we record our podcast episodes, you will be getting access to the raw, behind-the-scenes, unedited version of episodes before they get officially released.
And Sarah, does that include our mistakes and screw-ups and our humiliating?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Every
it does.
single one of them.
Every single one of them, yes. So again, this is just an extra thank you to those who are going above and beyond. But whether you choose to become a monthly financial supporter or not, we still love you. We want to say we thank you for your support, your encouragement, and your feedback.
If you want to become a monthly financial supporter, please visit our website at www.SteeleWatching.com to sign up.